Please rise for pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the regular meeting to order at 7:03. Just a brief announcement, we did have an executive session on July 12th concerning contracts, personnel, and legal issues. Roll call, Mr. Trujillo, please.
Ms. Joy Beers? Present. Mr. Richard Phelps?
Here.
Mr. David Bradley?
Here.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Present.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Here.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik? Here. Mrs. Rita Spinelli? Here. Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Here.
And Mr. Larry Stern?
Here. No, we'll move right on to public comment. Mr. Sharon? And you wanted to speak at the end of the meeting?
Yes. Thank you. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity at the end of the last meeting, so I do want to start this meeting off just by saying, I think oftentimes we get lost in a lot of these meetings, and I just want to a student that goes to elementary school here, and the work that was done by the elementary teacher that he had, Janine Matique, as well as the principal, was just phenomenal and outstanding. So I just wanted to share that. I don't think, again, we get to see that enough. Now, I did have a couple questions or comments on the agenda items for tonight. So as far as the MOU, what is the potential cost of the early retirement packages that are being offered, if I read that correctly?
The retirement package mirrors that for the teacher's contract that they have. They're 50 days for a year of single coverage, or 100 days for a year of family, or a spouse, employee spouse. For support, the contract that we agreed to is 75 days for single coverage, 150 days for employee and spouse for a year of medical coverage. And then for the MOU this evening for Act 93, it's 35 days for a single 70. So it's just, for all groups to have, have that opportunity for healthcare.
Why are we offering early retirement, though, I guess was my question. Not with the economy the way it is and tough times.
It's not, there's no incentive for early retirement. It's basically the amount of sick days that they have. So if they have only 10 sick days, it doesn't, they won't qualify for anything.
But if they have more, then they're entitled to free health insurance coverage.
But they would also be paid out, so they don't get both.
Okay, so it's one or the payout. Yeah, okay. Thank you. The HR job description, business administrator HR job description, who wrote that?
That was written by the administration based upon what we need. I know Mr. Rarick. We actually had that proposed last year.
Okay.
We were looking at that position. We currently no longer have an assistant business manager. We also no longer have a confidential secretary to the business administrator, business office, and then there was also another business position that we ended up not replacing. That was about 4 or 5 years ago. So this position is kind of, looking at that and working with Mr. Rarick and kind of seeing what assistance, we need. So this one person in really the business office is going to be, doing many of those roles that were done in the past by those employees.
How many people will this person be directly supervising?
0.
Okay, it does say that they would be supervising the business office as well as the business administrator in the job description.
No, there'd be no supervision. They're supervising.
I'm pretty sure it does say that, so maybe I'm wrong, so I'll go back to where I did that.
But I thought it was supervision, so just double check and make sure.
And then I did notice that there was a big increase being proposed to the K 3 through 5 principal position from 84,000 to 110,000.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
Those numbers unfortunately are not accurate.
Okay.
The current principal K to 5 is going to a K to 12 role, and it's 88,000. That's on the agenda.
Okay.
Those numbers, wherever you got them from, are inaccurate.
Okay, thank you.
Move on to Mr. Bradley, corruption. G.
Okay, ready? All right, this government agency, I feel is corrupt to the core. With each passing action taken by the government agency, we witness these politicians taking more actions that favor a trend. You all know me, I've been doing this for a while. We've now collected enough history of the various activities. We find that the trend to not present a random outcome, but favor an immoral path in favor of the will of certain politicians within this room. This government has no lawful authority to sell those schools without advertising them properly. On that, I think we all agree. This government had no lawful authority to move $8 million from a protected fund for post-employee benefits, not only to cheat the law a second time and construct an off-budget stadium. On that, we probably all agree. And so did the Auditor General. Sad thing is these students now sit without proper supplies, yet Larry, Wayne, and Steve take pride in sticking it to our tribe as the stadium sits idle most of the time. The Auditor General's report shows that each time that the law was cheated, It documented what we all knew: the NEF funding and the related stipends paid to President Stern's wife's boss, the superintendent, for a case study that did not yield great benefits to the students in the classrooms. The PEASER funds are now under federal investigation, with these citizens of Pennsylvania eventually footing that bill. Larry, Wayne, and Steve were all on the board for both of those actions, parking funds outside the community's input in a protected fund, and them on an off-budget stadium, again, outside the community's input reach. Repeatedly, supplies and services are being cut from our students in the classroom and community, always favoring others. What are the odds of getting a government job that is supposed to be open to the best candidate and for the public as a whole if your name isn't one of the favorites on this list? Watch as the directors squirm and scurry like rats as I list the names that appear to have favored treatment on hiring level, student levels, and sports levels. Pride is their obvious corruption, and it's reinforced in the system: intimidation tactics and favoritism. It taints the hard work of so many. When the community allows the immoral board to act without an apology and without demanding the resignation, the problems escalate. When I got involved, it was a sexting teacher. We were up to sexual assaults in the locker rooms. The politicians called it hazing. Injuries from bullies in the elementary center, sending a student to the pediatric ICU, called a slip and fall incident. And the lack of policy enforcement when a board member's friend's child allegedly was documented cyberbullying and tormenting a young student over a club that was supported by many, that was supporting life, sorry. This list goes on, but I'll give you one more. How about the grandchild of a board member whose vulgar text was supported by many staff members, all without an enforcement of LASD policy? So as we look at these actions on this agenda, the payment of stipends, the lack of supervision for students, the formal written complaints being ignored, we see this trend. We'll witness on these votes today when Larry, Wayne, Rita, Steve, and Nathan divert monies from classrooms to favor others, and the lack of proper oversight will be on full display. It's for the people in this community that I ask why. And you'll hear it all night tonight. We uncover the root cause when we ask why. Once uncovered, the community can present their findings to the authorities when necessary. When Matt Fisher, a past teacher of this district, confessed to corruption charges involving minors, several members of this board were still on this board, voted to accept the resignation date that predated his official arrest date. I asked why. The community was silenced. When we hear students were sexually assaulted by these politicians called it hazing, I asked, what policies failed? Where was the supervision? I basically asked why, and the community was silenced. When I found the title Assistant to the Superintendent doesn't even exist in Pennsylvania School Code, and suggested we should gut the administration staffing that yields no classroom benefits, this board voting to divert most of those monies tonight. This was being done not with proper protocols, job postings, interviews, and hiring the best in this government, but for the favored few. I call it cronyism. I feel support promoting from within, but only when the spot on the team is placed by competition that everyone has a right to fight for. And everyone should have a right to fight for those spots on this team as they realign some of these positions. Now this month the committee meetings were most of all were canceled. The only one left was the one to get the roof on this building. The people were blocked from access to their government. This meeting was bumped up 2 weeks. An executive session was held without selecting a reasonable time or enough advance notice so that the majority of the board could attend. The majority was not present. The community was silenced. I asked this board to answer the community when they ask why tonight. And when I want to ask on this athletic coaching manager position on G, and you want to look at the floor, and you want to look at this realignment, you want to look at the candidate for substitutes, it goes on and on. I appreciate your time. Ask why. Please.
April Walker.
Do you want to speak now and at the end?
Yes.
Okay.
At the last meeting, I had asked about the mask policy and the vaccine policy. I see on the agenda tonight that you will be voting on, I guess, the health and safety plan. What I would like to know is how we can all view that, because I know there's more detail than just having the mask be voluntary and the vaccines be voluntary. And specifically, I would like to know, will there still be contact tracing, forced quarantine? And what about COVID testing without parental consent?
Right now, with the health and safety plan, I can tell you that there is no plan. We're not ready for the state about making the vaccine mandatory, needing consent, or it's just totally parents' decision. The most recent guidance from last week was that vaccinated staff and students don't have to wear masks at all in the buildings. We are looking at masks being optional, parent decision. I will say public transportation, we did get clarification on that. School buses are considered public transportation. And at this point, because of the signature in January, the federal law, federal guidelines for masks being worn in public transportation, students will be required to wear masks on buses. And the bus driver will also be required, but that's, the board here doesn't have that authority to make that change. It's actually federal with the mask mandate that they have. And then as far as contact tracing, everything's the same. Quarantine. Now the only thing that will be different, of course, is if the student's vaccinated or not vaccinated, and the distance that they may have been 3 feet, it used to be 6 feet, now of course down to 3 feet on masks. But our plan for the classrooms are to have all students facing forward and being as back to, I'll call it normal as possible, other than the things that were required. So contact tracing will still be handled the same way.
And this is coming from the state?
Yes.
This is not coming from you?
No, the contact tracing is the state and CDC, because we contact them and we get notified of a positive test, and they'll actually contact individuals themselves. The school will even contact them at times.
Okay, and...
So the contact tracing, just for clarification, will still be taking place.
Okay, and will there be COVID testing without parental consent?
We have there's no COVID testing or anything from us. Now, if they come and have an illness at the nurse may recommend that, you get checked, but there's no requirement from us at all regarding any COVID testing.
And so, am I correct in hearing what you're saying, that if a student is not vaccinated, then they will have to wear a mask, or is that still
No.
voluntary?
It's optional. Yeah. And if the student is vaccinated and wishes to wear a mask, they still can too.
Okay. And if they were found through the contact tracing to have been exposed to someone with COVID, then they would have to wear a mask?
They would be quarantined.
They would be quarantined and then have to wear a mask, or just?
No, they come back like they would normally.
Okay, so if they, okay.
Yeah, so if I would be quarantined because I was part of the contact tracing, when I return, it's still an option for me to wear a mask.
Okay, and how does the contact tracing work exactly?
The contact tracing is set up if I'm sitting next to someone and I'm closer to for 15 minutes unmasked, 3 feet or closer, then they would consider that a possible contact. And so that student, depending on the dates when the person tested positive versus the dates when they were, could be quarantined for 10 days, could be 7 days. There's a bunch of different factors that take into consideration.
Okay.
But that guidance comes right from the Department of Health.
Okay, and that information is collected because the student was, like, somehow you were made aware that they were COVID positive or something?
Yeah, 'cause
And
they
then it's
don't-
the students around them, and then the students around them, the entire class, or just?
No, just the students that they've been in contact.
And what is the plan for them when they have to be quarantined?
They would be home being cyber learning at home.
Zoom
Through
classes?
Canvas. No, it'll be through Canvas, it'll be at their own pace. All the classes now are on Canvas, so the students will be able to go on there, log on, and get all the information, get their classes, but they will not be Zoomed.
I do echo Mr. Bradley's concerns, and I would like to know why to those questions as well.
Mr. Cleaver?
have the ability to do COVID tests, or we don't have that
We don't have
capacity
any
on
testing
site?
on site.
Okay.
Any testing like that would have to be done at either urgent care or one of the health facilities.
I was just curious since we were talking about it.
Mr. Slumzovich?
I'm at the end.
Oh, so you changed to the end?
No, that's the same communication.
Excuse me 1 second. You didn't answer how we as a community and parents could view the health and safety plan. Is that online?
I'm sorry, yes, it's on the website. If you go to the agenda, you can click right on the health and safety plan, and that document will pop up.
And all details are in there that?
Yes, it's very, again, it's nowhere near what it was, the first time we did it. It's very summarized, that we're required. It's a template came from PE for us to complete.
Thank you.
Where do you find the curriculum online?
What's that?
Where do you find the curriculum online?
It would depend on the class. Teachers may have their own website. They may have different, like the teams at the middle school, a lot of their things are done through the teams, like 7 white, 7 maroon, depending on the teams.
Online for parents
That
too?
would be, well, not all of them, but
Yeah,
it would be up to be teacher specific.
So we have a heading under departments. It says curriculum. And then it says curriculum for the elementary school, middle school, and high school. And all of them are blank. And all of those curriculums not only are blank, but the last update was a letter from Tim Tack in 2014, 2015.
That would, like I said, it'd be more teacher specific, because the curriculums do change year to year. So if you were looking for a certain class, you may be able to go on the website for the teacher.
You may be able to go on the website, or
They're not
I'm talking
required.
not
They're
a
not-
parent.
They're
I'm
not
talking.
required to have it on their website, but they can. Many of them do.
All right, that's new business.
Okay, once again, I've added this back on after I took it off, for the minutes for June. There were revised minutes put out, and they too are inaccurate. Nathan Fuller stated, "I think it is time to terminate the meeting here." That's not a motion. There was no motion made to adjourn. There was a motion. Larry did ask for a motion to recess, which Rita firsted. There was no second to that motion, and then the meeting got adjourned. I think that the minutes, since they were the permanent record of the meeting, need to be accurate. According to Robert's rules, the steps in handling a motion are you make a motion, someone seconds the motion, then the motion is put to a vote. That's a motion. We didn't have a motion. And according to Board Policy 006 on meetings, Robert's rules. Financial matters. I emailed, and I thank Ed for getting back to me, back and forth today on the expenditure by object report under 2660. And we went from about $11,415 for personnel salaries, which was presented in May, so it would have been the April one, to negative 1792 in this last one. And he explained to me it's because the funding came in from last year. But on the expenditures by object report, if you go into the revenues would have been updated to reflect funding. I would think that the expenditures, and in the AFR, those expenditures are going to have to be noted, and they should remain on the expenditure by object report to give the board correct information on what was expensed. Now, on the personnel, letter A, the Act 93 MOU, I'd like to know, has the district ever paid overtime to the right to know officer? If so, will this stipend eliminate the payment of overtime? If we have paid overtime for this position and the stipend does not eliminate the payment of overtime, how does this stipend benefit the district? And I mean the district as a whole. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it, I'm not saying she doesn't do a lot of work on it. But if she's not putting in overtime, or if she is, and the stipend does not negate that overtime, then I think it should be removed. On the reassignments, for those being reassigned to new job description, do they meet the minimum criteria contained in the job descriptions? I don't know these people, so I have no idea. Have these job descriptions and hiring for same been advertised outside the district?
No.
If not, why not?
Because we have internal people who have been doing the job.
Well, I'm all for promoting from within, and I am. Is it not best to find the most qualified person for the job? And perhaps advertising outside, and then they could apply for the job, and if they were picked, that's different. Obviously, staff is being moved. Why isn't the public given the information of all staff being reassigned to either added duties or new positions and the costs incurred by the district for same? I think the public deserves that. Are we using one-time, in other words, ESSER funding to establish and pay for the new positions? And if so, how will we meet this financial responsibility in the future? So are we using ESSER funding to staff these new positions?
No.
Okay. Because, I mean, we were just about bankrupt last year, and now we have new positions that we're paying a lot of money for. Thank you.
So move on to the superintendent's report, Mr. Cleaver.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Heighton School District in-person board meeting. I would like to thank everyone for their support and patience over this last year plus that we have transitioned from in-person meetings to virtual, now transitioning back to in-person meetings. It is great now to be able to hold these meetings in person again, and we'll continue, as long as we are permitted from the guidelines to continue to hold these meetings in person. Another transition taking place is that of Board Docs program for the committee and board meetings and agendas. The programs allow for easier review of documents and give individuals the ability to search meetings minutes. And there's also a large reduction in paper usage. So again, the best thing to do is go on the website, you can click on Board Docs. It's actually on our website. If you scroll down, it's the first big block link on the right-hand side. You can click on Board Docs, you'll be able to click on View the Agenda, View the Attachments, and there's also a video icon, so wherever you want to watch the live streaming, you can click on that video icon and it'll promote you to watch the live streaming as well. The district is in full swing with summer programs and school activities, both extracurricular and co-curricular. It's great to see the kids enjoying the programs and able to get back to some sense of normalcy while being able to participate in outdoor school-related activities with their peers. I don't know if anyone had a chance to talk to anyone, but the kids are really excited to be back, able to have their summer adventures camps and the different camps that we offer here, the Title I reading and math camps as well. We have a large number of students participating, and it's great to be able to, again, offer them. And I'd like to thank the staff for working those camps and putting a lot of effort into preparing them for our kids. The district is continuing to have new family members register their children for our school. All registration is now taking place here at central office and has been running very smoothly. Just as a quick FYI, in the last 2 weeks, we have welcomed 13 new students to our district. And these are families moving into the school district. They're not coming from cyber school or coming from our side of the program. They're actually coming from outside districts moving into our district. And that completes my report.
Thank you, sir. On the business administrator's report.
Good evening. The business office is pleased to report that the 2021-2022 approved budget has been uploaded to PDE, as well programmed into our CSI accounting system. We've also confirmed printing and mailing of 4 of the municipality tax bills, including Manhattan Borough, Perryville, Franklin, and Mahoning Townships. Weissport and East Penn Township files are at the printer and will be mailed this week. The business office has also initiated the FIS, Financial Information System transition, with the CSIU to provide an updated accounting, payroll, and personnel platform that is web-based, user-friendly, and efficient when compared to the legacy software used today. The process of conversion will take several months as data needs to be cleaned up and migrated to the new system concurrent to training of staff and testing of programs to ensure a seamless integration. The business office has also begun the requisition and purchasing process for the supplies needed for the upcoming 21-22 school year. This includes supplies across the district for students, teachers, curriculum, buildings and grounds, athletics, and other key departments such as our nursing and technology. We currently have $176,700 in regular education supplies budgeted for the new year that will allow the critical educational process to move forward in all departments. Several key financial highlights from the 2021 school year include a $3,097,412 additional revenue received comparatively to expected budget, a $126,616 spec share fund refund from the PSHEC, a $779,472 underperformance in healthcare expenses resulting in a refund, and a projected 2021 final year expenditure under budget. Thank you.
Mr. Rarick. Move on to minutes. Need a motion and a second to approve the revised minutes of the June 28, 2021 board meeting. Motion and a second, please.
Larry, why are you calling to ask for motion if you know they're wrong and you want to correct
It
it?
said revised minutes.
Yeah, but she just said even after they're
I'm
revised.
not sure they're wrong. If the board says they're not wrong, they're not wrong.
Okay, did you look at it?
I looked at them.
Did you think that they were wrong after she got her
I
email?
actually was talking with, I know Mr. Fowler reviewed the tape and reviewed it as well. And that's why I'm agreeing that we're just voting the motion out there, Mr. Riley. So
One
let's-
more time, why are you asking for a motion when you know it's wrong?
I'm not knowing that they're wrong.
You don't think it's wrong?
I don't think so.
And you reviewed it?
I was trying, let's get the motion in a second, then we can continue our conversation.
Where are these minutes? Can I get a copy of it? Rusty, can I borrow a copy? So, as of when were they revised? After the,
Today. This afternoon. The end of the meeting was revised.
yeah, this is still wrong.
I don't have a motion in a second.
I know, well, you shouldn't be asking for it till it gets
Well, you
corrected.
can vote no on it, Mr. Bradley.
Just-
Just
no,
no,
just
motion
put-
in a second. Anybody want to put a
Postpone
motion
it
in
for
a
next
second?
time.
I'll move.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second on the board minutes?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Bernard, second by Mr. Fuller. Okay,
To
now,
what, approve it or
now
not?
go.
Did you guys motion to approve it?
It doesn't mean that they have to
A
vote
motion to
yes.
bring it up for discussion, so discuss.
The minutes are off, they're wrong, they should be corrected.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Robert's rule says it's immoral for you to bring a motion on the table when you know it's wrong. You're suborning perjury, basically, in essence, when you ask for something that you know is wrong to be
And the
done.
meeting, according to what you're hearing on the tape and according to what I heard, probably, it could be different, because you know what? There was such a circus, mainly because of you, sir, and the overriding conversation that was going on with nobody being quiet and trying to end the meeting. So.
Your ability to control the meeting, Larry, is up to you.
Oh, yeah, my
It is.
ability to control.
You should
me,
use
my
Robert's
ability to
rules.
control you, that would be awesome, but I can't.
You're right, you can't, because I act morally, and you don't.
That's your.
And we've seen that. We recognize that.
At
That's
least
why it's
I don't-
called
At
purchase.
least I don't
That's
send
why you
out
should
nasty
apologize.
emails about people's personal
should-
stuff that's completely.
You should
false.
apologize and resign. You're not doing your job. The job is to not ask for this motion because you know it to be wrong.
I have a motion in a second. Roll call, vote, Ms. Virginia, please.
Am I doing a roll call?
No, I need a motion. I have a motion in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No.
Roll call vote, please.
No.
Okay, you can do roll call if you ask for it. That's policy.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik? No. Mrs. Rita Spinelli? Yes. Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers? No. Mr. Richard Belt? Mr. David Bradley?
No, you should correct them first. Larry, what
Mr.
are you
David
doing?
Fuller?
Yes.
Larry, the whole meeting gonna be like this?
5 yes, 4 no.
Food service on the financial matters. Subject A, I need a motion and a second to make the following transfer from the general fund to the food service fund as per the reimbursements from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. $127,645.27 from May 2021. Need a motion and a second, please.
I'll make that.
A motion by Mr. Holland, a second by Mr. Wentz. Any discussion on the movement of the transfer to the general fund, from the general fund to the food service fund?
Detailed report should be provided to your board before they make this decision so they can be educated.
Thank you. Any further comments? I have a motion in effect, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Roll call, please. You're gonna have to take credit for this, Larry.
Proceed, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Gail Mahoney? No. Mrs. Rita Spinelli? Yes. Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts?
No.
Mr. David Bradley?
Abstention, lack of information to the board.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
6 yes, 2 no, 1 abstention, motion carries.
Need a motion and a second to authorize the reimbursement of the general fund from the food service fund in the amount of $100,000 for the expenses incurred and accumulated from the operation of the food service. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Ms. Spinelli?
I'll second.
Fuller?
Same objection, please, and roll call vote.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Rarick, could you just go over again what this is, so everybody...
Mr. Rarick, why don't you provide a detailed report for your entire board so that we can see where every dollar is collected and every dollar is spent, and then confirm through a third party to make sure that it's verified that these dollars that were collected were properly spent.
So, yes, I can clarify. For the first one, the food transfer, the state issues money only into one account. So when they issue our regular education subsidy or our special education subsidy, as well as our food service subsidy, it will only go into one account. We then have to transfer that money to our food service. So that $127,000 in the previous motion was money given to us through FAI, which then gets transferred to the food service. The motion we're on now, general fund reimbursement from the food service fund, it has been brought up on several audits and not addressed that the food service owes the general fund money. This is the first time in a long time that the food service is reimbursing the general fund, which I think is a great thing to have happen. You'll see in the next motion as well, for the recommendation of our audit, the remainder of that money owed, which is a due to the general fund from the food service, be wiped on paper because it is not acceptable for the food service to subsidize the general fund. Vice versa, the general fund can subsidize the food service fund, but not in reverse.
Mr. Rarick, thank you, because you just proved my point, and I'd like to reiterate that. So it was discovered on the audit that these accounts are not being properly reviewed by this board. They're not being caught until it gets to audit. We're not doing our job of oversight. We're not given the information, and we're trying to correct these matters, Rita. So you should not be allowing these things to be kicked down the road when you know that they were wrong. The auditor told us they were wrong, and they need to be corrected. So until you do your job, stop rubber stamping, stop blindly trusting. Verify the information. Verify that the state's giving us the right amount of money. Verify that the money's going to the right places. That's the job of director. Until then, you should abstain your votes until the subordinate administration does their job, so you can do your job and serve those people. Thank you.
Any further discussion on item B? All those in favor of item B signify by saying aye. Aye.
Roll call. I'd like to vote on all these people that are going to say aye to things that they know the auditor said was wrong and they did not verify them, and I'd like their vote on the record. Thank you.
Please proceed, Mr.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli? Yes. Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts? Mr. David Bradley?
Abstention, lack of information.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahoney? Yes. Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes, and I commend Mr. Rarick in correcting the oversights in the past. Thank you.
7 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention, motion carries.
Do I have the opportunity to
Do you mean the lack of oversight in the past, right? You mean the lack of oversight in the past that would cause this problem?
I mean, the lack of things that didn't happen
Yeah.
in the business office.
Yeah.
You didn't catch
When
any
you
of
were
this
on- right,
till
but I
after
did
the last
testify-
3.5
hold
years,
on.
so I don't think
But
you
I
have
did.
to legislate. No,
Larry, I did. I called it, we called in the auditor general.
You called it, yes, that's
We
right.
showed you that you were not doing your
And
job.
yourself, you're exactly right.
Run the meeting properly. If you're gonna let me have the floor, let me have the floor. You need to run the meeting properly. You need to get your board information. It comes from our subordinate administration. They report to the board, we report to them. Until you get that hierarchy properly, you and your family members and all the other cronies in this community are screwing this public out of money. $3 million on NEF, stipends, money that was set aside for the post-employee benefits for the staff of this community, taken from those protected funds, used off budget to buy a pet peeve project of the stadium. It's wrong.
On item C, I need a motion and a second to authorize the relief of the food service fund due to general fund in the amount of $483,112 as per audit recommendations. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Foley, Mr. Wentz.
Second, Wayne.
Thank you. Discussion on item C. Hearing none, I will call for roll call vote. Ms. Virginia, please.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belt, Mr. David Bradley,
Abstention, lack of information.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahoney,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Smith.
Yeah.
7 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention, motion carries.
On the subject D, I need a motion and a second to write off the balance of $1,430.05 in unpaid balances for students no longer in the district. Need a motion and a second, please. Mr. Elling,
Second.
Mr. Holland. Discussion on item D. All those in favor of item D signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. On financial matters, you recommend, correct? I need a motion and a second to approve the following reports: expenditure report, expenditure by object report, revenue summary, expenditure comparison report, and revenue comparison report. Treasurer report for June will be provided at August board meeting due to the timing of bank statements. I need a motion and a second, please.
Can you separate the expenditure by object report 2020 through 2021, please? To have its own vote for approval or disapproval?
You can note that in your response.
No, I just asked you a question, Larry.
I-
You're
I
you're
just
running the
said
meeting.
I'm not modifying the agenda, sir, for your request.
I make a motion that we separate the expenditure by object report so that individual board members can vote on that report that shows that we're violating section 609 and shows that we're violating 687 of the Pennsylvania School Code. I'd like to get them separated. Can I get a second on that motion, please?
I'll second it.
God bless you.
So the motion is to pull out which report number, Mr. Garner?
The one that shows the illegality, Larry, you should know which one it is. You're in court over it.
Please specify.
I'm glad. Expenditure by object report 2021.
So that would be item 2 in the first list.
Go with the title, Larry. What's wrong with you?
I'm asking for clarity, sir. I don't need a smart-ass remark.
Then
I know it's very, very difficult for you not to
Educate
get
yourself,
it.
Larry. You've got a job to do. Come on, you can do it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to pull out some specific report. Is there any communications or discussions on that motion and a second to pull that out of the primary motion?
I'm also not sure exactly which report you're referring to, because there's one for 20 to 21 school year, there's one for 21 to 22 school year. So I'd also appreciate clarity on that.
You should pay attention. Thank you. The one that's illegal. Which one would be illegal, Nathan? You're also in court over this. Why don't you ask Ed? He knows which one it is. Ask Ed. He knows which one it is.
Roll call vote on the removal of the expenditure by object report.
Should public comment be allowed?
I have a motion in a second, yes, you can have public comment. Do anybody want to comment on that?
Just that expenditure by object report. Therefore, expenditures were made, even though it shows a negative balance, there were still expenditures. I understand we received the funding, but in order for the board to understand what was expended, that they need to see the amounts that were expended. That is my issue with it.
Mr. Rivera, do you have any comment on the report?
Barb, were you specifically mentioning
I
Function of
specifically
agency.
looked at the 2660, which
Yeah.
is the security.
the?
And for the April one through April 30th, it showed $11,415 expended in salaries, and also a certain amount for benefits. Now, the benefits amount stayed, but it shows negative 1792 in this latest report for salaries. And since it's an expenditure by object, I realize we have to expend the money prior to getting reimbursed for it. And that's how the grants work?
Right, so specifically with this grant, it actually crosses the school year. So it's, some of the grants do that, they will cross the school year. So in that case, this actual revenue is just a reduction in the expenditure caption. And I can actually send you that report that shows you, it's actually been happening throughout the year as we receive the money.
Okay, but since it's an expenditure by object, doesn't the revenue received from the grant go into the revenue total on the revenue report?
No, and I think we could break it out by actual just
I mean,
expenditure.
if I'm just looking at it from a board's point of view, how are they gonna know how much money we actually put out if, as things are received, they are taken out of the budget? Because it's a budget report, correct?
This is a condensed board summary report, not a budget report.
Okay, but it's on the budget, correct?
Yeah, it's on the budget.
So we need to know that X amount of dollars needs to be in there prior to receiving the revenue, or the funding, for, since that's a grant. I think it's $20,000, isn't it?
Yeah, Barb, there's also one that's negative $873,000. $750,000 negative, yeah. On this report, spent without having it on the budget.
Well,
Just in
I
complete opposition of what the Auditor General
I
said.
only looked at this particular thing because it jumped out at me, because it had a negative balance. And my understanding of these reports, and I do appreciate you trying to get everything where it's supposed to go, because that was a big issue for a number of years, that the reports that were being received were fictitious, because the things were not expensed correctly. Now, who knows if the revenue was reported correctly in the correct columns? I don't know, and I realize it's been a lot of work. It's just, I have an issue with what was actually expensed is now a negative number, and how do you know what you're gonna need to budget in there next year if you don't know what was totally expended? I realize it's gonna be different because apparently we had a lot less hours for police officers over this last year, and a lot of that was due to COVID. I realize things are gonna change when we get back to normal. But I think it should be an accurate reporting.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is the way that this condensed board summary reports that roll up. It's including everything, not just the expenditure as well as the revenue.
Okay, okay.
But to be clear, this board has very little oversight because it doesn't get the information. And you have a $40 million slush fund that's taken from this community. Half of it's taken from the community directly, the other half over throughout the state and federal. $40 million collected each and every year from their pockets. Blind trusted, rubber stamped, and handed to a subordinate administration that's way off budget, doesn't manage a budget, doesn't oversee the budget, and doesn't first come back to the board under the law and say, we're going to go over the budget, we need to have this discussion. The people in this community need to have that discussion. Because we're gonna transfer money in this budget, in this first 3 months or second 9 months of the season.
You can't do it.
I know, first 3 months, right, that'd be illegal too. So, or the second month without having this 2/3 vote or majority vote. And it's those laws, those rules that protect the public from the things that happen within this district, from the corruption of Wayne and Steve and Larry over all these years. And that is the problem we're trying to correct, Larry. So you can try to shut up another board member, but the reality is, that's exactly what we're trying to fix, Barb. You have a problem where the system is broken. You have duly elected officials who are supposed to manage, collect these dollars, and disperse them for the children's benefits, not pet peeve projects.
The point I'm trying to make is making sure that the reports are correct so that the board can do that.
Not only the reports gotta be correct though, but the transactions have to be correct. You
Well,
can't
yes.
have these negative balances if you didn't allow them to spend the money in the first place without first asking for the
Dave,
public to.
The reports, and I've looked over them, I did not do a deep dive into them over the last several years. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. The ones that I've requested through Right to Know, because I did. Because we only started receiving the information for the public online, I believe, was in November of 2018. So we were not getting any of that information prior to. But the board itself, because things were not expensed into the proper categories, which Ed is trying to correct, and I do appreciate that, they were given information, although the totals may have been good, they had no clue where the money was being spent. And yes, repeatedly, budget sections and functions were over budget by huge numbers.
Well, this board's not supposed to give them the money until they know where it's going. Number one. And that's the problem. It's the root cause of the issue. The blind trusting rubber stampers of taking these budget dollars and not assigning them properly, excuse me, Mr. Sir, not assigning them properly at the beginning and then dispersing them each and every month to make sure that the business of the district can be managed. We don't want kids without supplies in their rooms because of an administration funneling monies to another place just to say I'm going to shoehorn it later and have the community apologize to the people that took and moved the money to places where it shouldn't have went in the first place. Because you have the right to have that oversight. You have the right to put that input in. It's your money that we're spending. So you have that right. They're taking that right from you. It is immoral. It is illegal, according to what the Auditor General said, and these guys are still ignoring it, brushing it off, and pretending it doesn't matter because nobody cares. But I
Second to, actually, since we didn't get clarity, to move both the number 2 expenditure vouchers reports.
You did get clarity. You weren't paying attention, Larry. Come on,
Thank you very
pay
much,
attention.
David.
It was 2020,
Yeah, come on.
2021.
He don't know. Ask your wife's boss. Maybe he knows for you.
Do you know that, he's not my wife's boss, do you know that?
Really?
Yeah. my wife
Really?
doesn't
He's not
work-
the superintendent?
My wife doesn't work for this district.
He's not the superintendent?
My wife doesn't work for this district anymore.
Okay.
I guess that's how I
X.
haven't paid attention to
Call
all
it
the
X.
information from past meetings.
Call it X.
Yeah, you gotta come up with a new line.
So, we have a motion and a second to remove the expenditure voucher report from the full motion. We had discussion. So we'll have a roll call vote on that.
Mr. Revere? No. Mr. Richard Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
No.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
No.
Mrs. Gail Mahoney? Yes. Mrs. Rita Spinelli? No. Mr. Wayne Wentz?
No.
Mr. Larry Stern?
No.
3 yes, 6
So
no.
we need a motion and a second to approve all the reports. Have a motion and a second, please.
So moved. I'll second.
Okay. Anything else?
And the quick discussions, are these reports accurate?
Are they accurate? I would say they're accurate to the best of our abilities.
I would agree.
Can I please get that statement as a full statement from you, Mr. Rarick? We're going to need that for the judge. The reports are accurate.
The reports are accurate
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Roll call vote, Mr. Tenio, please.
Mr. Richard Belts?
No.
Mr. David Bradley?
No.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahoney? Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers?
No.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
5 yes, 3 no, 1 absent, motion carries.
On item F, need a motion and a second to approve the waste management, trash, and recycling contract for the 2021-22, 2022-23 fiscal year per the attached pricing schedule. Need a motion and a second, please. First by Mr. Wentz, a second by Mr. Holland. Any discussion on the waste management contract?
Can we please correct the agreement so it doesn't have Brian Fike's name on it anymore? He was 2 or 3 business managers ago.
If you look at the right-hand side, that is, all that information is corrected.
It still shows Brian Fike on it, account name.
To the right,
To the right, it has my name.
I see that, but why do we still have his
It
name?
has Brian Fike's
Why?
email on it.
Fix it,
We'll get it done.
thank you.
But if you look to the right-hand side is the correct information. Thank you.
Half, that's awesome, way to
Any
go.
other questions
It's
on
there.
item F? All those in favor of item F, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye with correction.
Pardon me, David?
I said aye with the correction of being more than halfway correct, thank you.
Thank you.
So wait, you knew it was wrong and you let it go?
Mr. Bradley, the right-hand side is the exact same information that's being transferred to Mr. Barrett's. They are identical. So it's going over to Mr. Barrett's information on the right-hand side. If look at
So you knew it was wrong and you didn't correct
contact, it's
And item G, I need a motion and a second to approve the proposal for the annual gym floor resurfacing for the high school, middle school, and elementary center for All-American Athletics as recommended by the Buildings and Grounds Committee at a total cost of $13,050 payable from the 2021-2022 athletic budget. Any motion and a second, please. A motion by Mr. Holland, a second by Mr. Wentz. Discussion on item G.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Does anybody else have a discussion on this?
Go ahead, Mr. Bell.
All right, so we put out a proposal to 3 players, SNS, J&J, and this All-American company. After doing some reasonable amount of research, we have found 3 basic things taking place that should cause anyone some concern. Number 1, SNS originally did this work according to Mr. Spots, and the person that did that work was a John Tragesser under the company name SNS, an employee of SNS. The project was a failure under John Tragesser. Complaints were made, issues were addressed, and they were not satisfied by Mr. Spots. Then, not going back to SNS, the district decided to try someone new, and they went to J&J to not only fix the old problems, but also rectify some other issues associated with the way that the John Tragesser had done this work. Fast forward, John Tragesser leaves SNS, has 5 charges. One was identity theft, one was theft by unlawful taking, and one was releasing stolen property. Those charges, effective today by the way, were dropped due to the necessity, because the victim and the witness is now dead of a horrible accident. So therefore, it's my suggestion that A, we get 3 legitimate proposals for 3 legitimate companies that can do this. There's tons of them that can do this. Tragesser called me on Sunday to let me know that this guy died of a horrible accident. And therefore, we should not be.
Why is John calling you?
Yeah, I know. But anyway, he knows I'm definitely did the research on this contract. However, not only did he call me to let me know that Mr. David Murray had passed on a very unique and wild accident, but at the same time, he wanted to reassure us that even though they're getting some of SNS's extra work, they would find time to make sure they get our district done, if we so elect to give them this work, because it will not be interrupted, even though they have extra work because SNS's owner had passed away. In the paper, when I looked it up, apparently this guy had taken things from his old boss, sold it to a school, and then rediverted the funds at the school to go to him instead of the old boss. I don't trust people that act that way, regardless of whether or not these charges got dropped because the witness died. I mean, I gotta say that out loud. The witness died, like last week. So we should actually do our.
So 2 people died?
The witness and is the witness and the victim is the guy that owned SNS flooring. Young man, family, regretfully passed. We should all have a moment of silence for such a great man. Thank you.
Any other discussion on item G?
I move we postpone until we have such time that we get 3 legitimate bidders from 3 legitimate companies that can actually do this work, and we are not, and we are not being influenced by our athletic director, that also is our building maintenance guy, that wears both hats, and called in these people, and even though he knew that John Trageser worked for SNS when they had the problem, he identified in the meeting, Mr. Spots identified in the meeting, that they didn't want to allow SNS to get the work, because John Trageser works for the new place. And they didn't want J&J to get the work, because he was unhappy with them, but he wants to go to the highest bidder under this new company that we've never used before.
So SNS was the company that put the haze on the floors?
Yeah. And John Trageser worked for them at the time that happened. So this new company, which Kyle Spots lied in the meeting about that, saying that we used this company before. No, we didn't use All American before. Even Larry fell for that lie. It's never used them. J&J was used in the past. They were the lowest bidder by a lot, and therefore they should not be circumvented. However, I think in all fairness, for the people that we serve, that J&J should bid it against other bidders legitimately, get real proposals, and then have it done properly, because this is tens of thousands of dollars being consumed. And instead of just picking a friend and a buddy and a system and a relationship, it should actually be bid and awarded as an open process, not, I got one bid today, and then what do you know, I got another one tomorrow from somebody else. It should all be legit. I don't think we're professionally managing the public's money properly when we do these types of shenanigans in this. I mean, who would think gym floor refinishing with such a nest egg of nefarious activities? Thank you. Just rebid it. It's so simple.
Is there a big difference in the number?
Yeah, it's significant. 10%, 15%, 15% or so. Yeah.
That's my question. Is there legitimately a big difference?
Actually, no, there's not. And we went through this last meeting, Mr.
It's 15%. I don't know.
Well, if I want 15%, that's the
It's
top.
15%. You know, if I made 15% of my return for my money, I'd be happier as a pig in poo. Right? 15% on one transaction in 30 days? Cool. What's the ROI for that? Right? When you all love to get 15% every month. I mean, geez. I'm lucky to get 15% a year.
Why are we putting out a bid to a company that's done shoddy work in the past?
Not only that, why are you putting out a bid for 3 bids when one of them, Kyle Spot says, I want these 3 people to bid, when he knows he doesn't want one of them and he knows he doesn't like the other one. So it's just nefarious activity. You're getting 3 bids to do work when you know you only want one of them. I mean, any managerial oversight would say, that's not the way we do things here. I mean, this is Lehighton. We have respect and responsibility not only to the community, but to the rest of Pennsylvania.
What about
You
the
do it right.
company that screwed the job up? Aren't they obligated to fix the job?
Well, that's what's funny. I checked that. So not only did I check that, I also checked the references.
No, this is not.
Yeah, so I checked.
No,
I appreciate that.
This is not what's
I'm
going
answering the
on,
question.
Mr. Bradley. No, you don't have the floor. You have a motion that did not get a second.
No, we got a motion in a
You have a
second.
motion that did get a first or second.
Did we not get a second? I'm sorry.
We got a first and a second on the original motion, sir.
Okay, I'm making a motion that we postpone this until such time we get 3 bidders because, well, let's get the second first. Can I get a second for that?
Can we clarify something
Second.
first?
Thank
Can
you.
you
So,
clarify, please, Ms. Will?
Can we clarify something first? With respect to Mr. Spots, he did comment that this company did do business with the district before, and they did in 2019. We paid them $5,538.80 to resurface a gym floor. So with
all
respect to
American or
that-
SMS?
All American.
Okay. We checked earlier and they said no. Now, we called the references for the All-American company and I called the references for
Mr. Bradley, you're not
SNS.
taking over.
I got them in writing. I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Bradley,
really?
no. You have a motion and a second on the floor.
Yeah, it's a discussion, right?
It's a discussion
Is
here.
there any
Yeah.
reason we
So
can't?
here's a discussion. Wait, we got a discussion, that's fine. So let me discuss it with you.
Is there any reason we can't wait?
Well, we waited from a month ago. 2 months ago. We're trying to get it done over a period within the summertime when the gyms are not used. If we miss this window, it's gonna be August 24th. Then the gyms are all used and all the kids are in the schools. So we need to get it done over the summertime when there's no one in the building.
We also have some, we have false sports.
I'm not concerned that we can work around that, but I'm concerned about working around the
Last
students.
time,
Yes, we did.
but we didn't get additional bids then, so we have the exact same information that we had a month ago.
Actually, I got more. Since they didn't do the work, I went out and got all the references. I asked him for references. John Traxler was nice enough to provide them. The references he provided, which was very surprising to me, were things like, well, they did good work, except for they did the wrong floor, so we had to pay them to do both floors because it's okay, because we wanted that floor done anyway. And I mean, it's the most convoluted, and if these are the references companies are giving you, it's back to this corruption of, if this board does not manage the money properly and allows these shenanigans to take place, this guy could show up and do 4 floors, and then we have to pay him because we made a mistake and forgot to be there when he showed up and did the wrong floors. And these mistakes apparently are prevalent, especially in this industry. Now, it's not hard, we got plenty of time. There's dozens of people that do this. You pick up the phone, you make a bid date for July 15th for the work to be done, July, August, whatever. And you put up a bid, and then you see who's gonna show up that can do it within the time frame that we're aiming for, for the dollars we're aiming for. It's a pretty straightforward process, but that's the moral standard of will this board act, will this board act as a moral board overseeing the disbursement of those funds from this community to get the lowest bidder qualified that can do the work within the timely fashion that they need. And this being mismanaged to the point.
Is this information in writing?
Yeah, it's all came on email and it's got
Can
all
you
that.
provide that to Larry?
Sure, we tried, they won't want to hear it, he doesn't care, no meetings, there was no athletic meeting, there was
Mr.
no
Bradley,
committee meetings.
I'd like to also comment.
I agree, you should have it, no committee meetings, that's why these meetings take so
Well,
long.
you have your computers there, can you get anything printed out and share it?
We've discussed it.
You know, I was under his references after this was brought up in the last meeting, but you told that exact same story in the last meeting, but none of us have seen any documentation of any of this.
Nor do you even care. I don't know why you don't care, Nathan, don't you care about their money? Don't you care about doing moral jobs? Don't you care about finding the lowest bidder? Why would you not care about the lowest bidder?
Postponing the motion.
Can we have public
First and a
comment on
second.
the
Can
motion,
we
please?
get into these things printed out? He does have a laptop there to print any of these things out. Print out anywhere in the.
Yes. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you.
Let's
I'm sorry, I understand.
let's deliberate it, because you can't get anything done.
It's a very simple question. You keep giving the guy ammo. Did this SNS company do shoddy work for us? Yes or no?
Just the one recommending.
No, not whatever, SNS, whoever he said did hazy work and hazy floor.
Did they screw it up?
was the last one, and Mr. Spots, and then we're not happy with, they'll furnish the finish that they came out.
So if that's the case, if you're not happy with the service provided to you from a company, why would you then include them in a bid or a request for proposal? If you know you're not gonna use them because they didn't do good work.
We just put it out to any proposal we have, we just ask anyone who wants to put in a proposal can do it. We can't not allow people to put a proposal in.
So these were we put it out to anyone, and these were the only three that came back.
Those were the three that.
Absolutely not. They were called, the three were called,
Right.
the three were called, two of them he excluded,
Right.
which I agree. Why would you ask for a bid from someone that you're gonna exclude anyway?
And why didn't you,
For the process, it is a proposal. You don't need to go out for a public bid and have a public bid for it, because of the cost. So what he did is he sent out the information to companies that do this, that have done it for us in the past.
Wouldn't you think you can't exclude them?
You wouldn't be able to. I mean, you cannot reach out to them, that would be something, but if they would give you a proposal, if they would find out you were asking for proposals, you'd have to.
But the guy there,
They're actually the lowest bidder, and we're not recommending them.
but no, wait, the lowest bidder was J&J. Those guys did fine work across the board. S&S had a problem, shoddy work, and John Trageser worked for S&S. John Trageser works for a new company, he's the one managing it. He's the highest bidder by more than 15%, and that's who they're trying to recommend. And they're saying he's the only one that can do the work, almost like a sole source, because the other two bidders, Kyle doesn't want it.
But this was discussed at Building and Grounds, and this is the recommendation.
Until we dug into it, none of the information was accurately provided by Mr. Spots.
Thank you.
He was caught lying in the meeting.
And he
Trump.
asked, and they did ask to, I believe Mr. Spots said that they asked if they could guarantee, if they did it again, that it won't happen again, and they couldn't guarantee that the haziness wouldn't show up again.
why aren't you demanding money back from S&S if they screwed it up?
Well, that one say they screwed it up. There was nothing by the specifications, we just didn't like the way it, came out. They didn't screw anything up. There was nothing screwed up. And it was just we, as a district, Mr. Spots, felt that it could have been done better, but there was no screw up.
No, sir. Wait a second. Whoa. That's a lie. There was a screw up. We got documents of the screw up. It's pulled floors. It was lifting up. We got pictures. You're mistaken. Why are you not knowledgeable in this situation? This is superintendent.
Or an installation issue.
Sure, but there was no mistake. They just said that they couldn't, that it would happen again.
If any one of us personally hired a professional to do a job and we didn't like it, I'm sure we would say that at the end. By right, that company should fix that at their cost, have one chance to fix it. So why are we not demanding money back, at least from them, to put to this new company because they did a bad job? If they're not gonna come and say, I don't care if the guy doesn't work, an employee reflects on your company. Okay, unfortunately, the company is responsible for your employees. So if an employee screwed him out and did what he did, I'm sorry, but that company is still responsible. I think the school district should go after for a percentage back of the money to put into a new floor. I don't see why all the money is on our heads.
It's not the floor, it's the fit. It's not like the floor was damaged, it's the finish.
And this was years ago, because I remember
Last year.
my son worked for the school district, and he said in that elementary school, that floor was bad 2 years ago,
No, this is
3 years
this is the
ago.
high school, this is the elementary school.
Okay, but the elementary school is on here also for all of them.
For the refinishing, right, but the issue of that we're talking about is at the high school.
Okay, well, my question is, why aren't you going after the company that screwed it up? To get a percentage of money back, to at least put in this fund, to help let me resurface the floor? That's my question.
Can you please state your name?
My name is Hope Greenawald.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
She just asked why. We should answer
That's
her.
why.
She asked why. I'd love to get an answer.
Anybody would go after a company to get a portion of their money back, or for them to at least fix the job that they did wrong to begin
Didn't
with.
they come back and fix it?
I have to ask, yes.
They came back and redid the spots that were easy.
They tried and they still wasn't happy. And then the email, you can get Kyle's emails. I mean, I did it through the right to know. So we have access to them. And the board shouldn't even have to do a right to know to get them. But all that is documented. This whole thing's a mess. It's unprofessional. And to answer your question, why? Because they're not spending their money. They're spending yours and they don't care.
Any other comments on tabling this
I want to hear the answer. She wants to know why. Why didn't this board hold these companies that are doing work inside of this district responsible as if it was our own money? Larry, why didn't we do that? Larry, why?
I can't answer your question.
Why can't you answer the question? The people are asking you why. Why would you not hold it up?
Because the issue was corrected. The issue was corrected.
We found out the issue was not correct, so you were lied to.
That's your opinion.
No, that's Kyle Spots' opinion. He physically wrote it down. He physically wrote it down.
Calm down, Dave.
Because you're not spending their money properly, and you sit here and don't care. You don't seem to care, Larry.
We can't get to the vote and table it, Dave.
One more time.
You won't be quiet.
Answer her question why.
I don't know why.
May I ask a question? During the Buildings and Grounds meeting, Kyle Spot said that Sue Howland had also seen and.
Correct, there were hazy spots on the floor, correct.
Yeah,
And the company was
Was
called
that
the
happening?
following day and asked to come out and redo those hazy spots, which they did do last summer, yes, last July.
okay, so the floor is fixed.
Again, it's a refinish that goes on top of the floor every summer. There were 2 locations when I actually was in there and the custodian checked with them that day, and they were hazy, and we didn't think they were to our approval. We called Mr. Spots, he contacted somebody, they came out, and they refinished those spots that they were doable for the school year, you know.
So your understanding is that the haze is repaired?
It was like correct.
Okay.
I'm not a floor person, I'm not a facilities person, but again, it was a hazy appearance on the floor, yes. And they came back and they fixed that, to my knowledge,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm just asking you because Kyle Spots is not here.
Yes. And that is correct. Kyle was called, he contacted the company, they came back out, I was in the building when they came back out, they went back into the gym floor, they refinished that section to the best, they were talking humidity and those type of things. Again, I'm not a facilities person, but, the floor was used all year long to no problems.
Sure. My impression in the Buildings and Grounds meeting was that the haze was still there. Was that your impression,
I'm not
Steve?
commenting on that here.
So,
Yeah, that was the impression I had from
Yes.
Kyle in the meeting,
It is.
that the haze was still present. And we had an email transmission afterwards, because I asked him to reach out to the 3 bidders and ask all 3 of them if they could repair the haze. And the person who's being recommended here, All American, sent an email that said, absolutely, we will make the haze disappear.
And he's the guy that put the haze on the first time.
You don't-
But here's the question I have. So in essence, the big picture view of what I'm trying to expose with this just one agenda item is that this board is not properly administering the care and attention to contracts needed. They're not doing their due diligence, they're not getting the information, they're not, I'm sorry, Rita, but they're not getting the information, they're getting half-assed information, and then it's convoluted, it's lies, they accept these lies, we challenge them to find out that they're lies, and they say, oh yeah, that wasn't it, this wasn't it, then we do right to nose to get the real information. And then the more you dig, the more it stinks. And you recognize at the end of the day, they don't seem to care about your money. They don't seem to care about doing a job right. Or, like you said, having 3 legitimate bidders that legitimately can do the work that are reputable and ethical. I mean, what is the risk we're going to have if there's someone that has a docket sheet? Now, granted, they're all dropped, let's be fair. The victim and the witness died, so they're all dropped, all these charges. And therefore, somewhere along the line, you should just rebid it under and the professional thing to do. 3 legitimate bidders.
Okay.
Need to do it by the date of which you're gonna do it. This is the process that we decided we wanna have done on the floor, and that's apples to apples. Thank you.
Any other comments? So the first motion is to postpone the selection of the floor. Okay? Roll call vote, Mr. Tillman.
Mr. David Bradley.
Yes, we should do it right.
Mr. Nathan Fuller.
No.
Mr. Stephen Holland.
No.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik.
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli.
No.
Mr. Wayne Wentz.
No.
Ms. Joy Beers.
Yes?
Mr. Richard Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
No to postpone. Back to All-American Athletics, we have a motion which I have by Stephen Holland, second by Mr. Wentz, to approve the proposal for the annual gym for resurfacing the high school, middle school, and elementary center from All-American Athletics, recommended by the Buildings and Grounds Committee, a total cost of $13,050 payable from the 2021-2022 school budget. Roll call vote, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nathan Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahoney.
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli.
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz.
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers.
No?
Mr. Richard Bellis. Mr. David Bradley.
No.
Mr. Larry Sir.
Yes.
5 yes, 4 no.
On item H. Need a motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit Number 21 for the Title III Consortium for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Motion and a second, please.
I'll second.
I have one by Mr. Bradley, second by Mr. Fuller. Any discussion on the Title III Consortium? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. On to the Seton Hall affiliation agreement. We have a motion and a second to approve the affiliation agreement between Lehigh Area School District and Seton Hall University for the purpose of providing experiential learning for the education students for the 2021 through 2024 school years. We have a motion and a second. Please.
So moved.
Any discussion on the affiliation agreement?
Mr. Cleaver, can you describe to me who is the recipient of this service?
This is for the student teaching, so this will be a person coming from Seton Hall or any other, it won't be the affiliation agreement. It'd be for the student teacher.
I see, yeah, they're coming from their.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
understood.
they're coming from their university. We already have existing, this is a new one.
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you, Joe. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. On the financial matters, the Accordia affiliation agreement, we have a motion and a second to approve the affiliation agreement between the Lehigh Area School District and Misericordia University for the purpose of providing experiential learning for the education students for the 2021 through 2024 school years. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Bradley? Mr. Wood? Excuse me? Any questions on the agreement? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. On to item K. I need a motion and a second to approve the enclosed independent consultant contract between the Lehigh Area School District and Desiree Rodriguez Reed for the 2021-2022 school year for the services on an as-needed basis pending any necessary paperwork. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Bradley? Mr. Wentz? Any questions on the bilingual school psychologist independent consultant contract?
Are we hiring this person because we have students who have difficulty speaking English?
No, this is for the testing, so the parents and student maybe have a different language barrier, so they come in and do the testing in their native language.
Oh, okay.
And it's through a consultant, so it's not officially, she should officially be paid her as the consultant.
Okay.
Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. On to Georgia's transportation. I need a motion and a second to approve and pay Georgia's transportation bill for June 2021 at a cost of $48,694.
So moved.
Mr. Fuller? Mr. Spinelli? Second. I've already got one, Wayne, thank you, though. Any questions on the bill from Georgia's transportation?
Was this reviewed in the financial committee meeting?
No, we did not have a finance committee meeting.
It was my understanding that an email was sent to the entire board to ask their opinion of this bill by the business manager so that they could get their approval to recommend it to put it on the agenda. Did that email take place?
I asked if there was any objection to it being on the agenda.
Did
In my
anyone,
opinion, this bill is never, only is seen by those who participate in the finance committee. I think the public would like to see this bill, and this is a better place for this bill.
I completely agree. The public should see everything. Did anyone respond and vote whether or not this should occur during that email meeting?
There was no vote, Mr. Bradley.
Did Rita not respond?
She responded to the email, but it was not a vote.
What did
There
she
was no
say in her
meeting
email?
going on, Mr. Bradley.
Maybe what did she say in her email?
I don't exactly recall.
Thank you, Ollie. Ollie North? I don't recall. You don't recall? It's okay. It's fine. We have records. We got all the records.
All those in favor of paying Georgia Transportation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Under payment of bills. Need a motion and a second to approve the following payment of bills. 2021-2022 school year, June 2021. Annual checks of $21,588.32. Regular checks of $36,694.06. And credit. Total of the general fund of $52,282.38 for the 2021-2022 school year, July 2021. General fund, credit card, debit card, payroll, and food service fund with a total of $2,261,933.44. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Mr. Melly, Mr. Fuller. Questions on the bills, Mr. Bradley?
Yep, I got plenty. So first of all, there's an old saying that you, given the responsibility of small things, you can then be given the responsibility of large things. This is $2.2 million. This also has not been properly reviewed. The payroll itself, which is just over $1.5 million, was one line item. Payroll, $1.5 million was given to this board. They were not given timesheets, they were not given contract reviews, they were not given payroll tests and checks. We have hourly employees, we have some salaried employees. I arrived here as part of a meeting for a right to know, and Mr. Rarick met with me after he arrived, and there was a lady here that was already at the school when it opened, and we were told that someone else that was providing this information wasn't going to come in until about 8 o'clock. I don't believe that we have any controls over the disbursement of $1.5 million, accurate controls, as if a business was doing it with these employees. Are these employees held accountable in any way from top down for their A, attendance, and B, performance, and C, hourly responsibility of being here performing a task? Where is the protocol, where's the oversight, and where's the reporting to this board so they can ethically, morally, and responsibly release these dollars to those people that theoretically did this job?
For the knowledge of the public as well as Mr. Bradley, you and I had that discussion, and I promised that all the bills, including all the backup documentation as well as payroll, will be put on the website, which to my knowledge it has, according to Janine. They are all placed up there every time we run them through the accounting system, so they are there to review at your leisure or whenever you feel the need to review them.
And so the public has access to this information? So here we are in a board meeting. This is perfect, guys. I love it. You're in a board meeting. You have our policies, which say that anything that this board sees, that public can see. And therefore, if we're going to see it, they get to see it. And it's a pertinent document and needs to be distributed to the press and public as part of our policy. Why are we not following our own policies? And our Auditor General from the state of Pennsylvania came in and said, stop it. Stop not following your own policies. Stop not giving information to your board. Stop not giving information to the press and public. Stop it. So when are we going to stop it, guys?
Any other comments?
Why aren't we stopping it? Why are we stopping it?
Why are we stopping it?
Why aren't we stopping it? Why are we stopping this item of information and not providing?
After the approval of the board. I don't believe this this information that should be put out until it's approved by the board.
That's pretty corrupt, Larry.
No, I don't think so.
If the board's gonna vote on whether or not to approve something, and we're gonna spend their money,
There you go.
and it has to be on the budget,
No,
they have to see it first before you make that vote, Larry. That's how the Sunshine Act works.
I don't think so, Mr. Riley.
I know that's not what you think so can you please explain yourself why you won't let the people that elected you to do a job the right to see what you see so that they can do this job with you?
I'm not engaging, per se.
I'm not against you either, Larry, but the reality is you're a duly elected official that has a responsibility. You took an oath of office to these people and you're not performing your duty.
Thank you.
Well, it's not a
Thank you.
thank you.
I appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Okay, but
Thank
are you gonna
Thank
do it?
Thank you.
Why don't you
I appreciate
apologize
it.
to them? You've been
I'm
doing this for
not
10
apologizing
years.
to you or anybody else.
Why wouldn't you
I'm
apologize?
not, 'cause
The
I don't
Auditor
think
General
you're
found out that you
No,
weren't doing the
no,
job.
Here we go. Roll call,
The
Mr.
Auditor
General,
General-
on the payment of bills.
Mrs. Gail Mahoney?
The judge said that malfeasance was taking place within
Yes.
this district.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
We're voting on the payment of bills.
We're looking for an apology, Wayne.
Mr. Beers? No.
Correct, thank you, sir.
Mr. Richard Bell?
No.
Mr. David Bradley?
No.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stir?
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no, motion carries.
On the personnel, Act 93, a motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Act 93 group and the Lehigh Area School District. Attachment closed. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved. I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Fuller, a second by Mr. Wentz to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Act 93 group and the Lehigh Area School District. Discussion.
I have one.
Go ahead, Mr. Bradley.
Who wrote this memorandum of understanding?
It's the same language that was in the contract for the teachers, other than the days, and for the support staff as well, with the addition of the right to know and the recording board secretary.
Excellent. Let's try to answer my question. Who wrote this agreement?
Who wrote it?
Who wrote it? Who authored this agreement? This memorandum of understanding, who authored it?
We had it as part of the agreement.
Yes. Who authored it? Who wrote it on a piece of paper and said, this is what I want this board to approve?
This was actually the same language, if you remember, from 2 years ago that they offered.
One more time. Who wrote this agreement? Do you know? Then don't answer. Mr. Fowler, do you know who wrote this agreement?
No.
Larry, do you know who wrote this agreement?
It's a memo, it's a memorandum of
Memorandum of
understanding between Act 93 and our district.
Thank you. Do you know who wrote this agreement?
Does it matter who wrote the?
Yes, it does,
Why?
because here's why.
It was
It was presented by the Act 93 group. They want to keep their.
preserved by the administration too. It's the exact same language that was done 2 years ago.
You guys can have all the fun you want with not knowing what's going on within this district. But the reality is,
First of all, there's a lot of things that you don't know that are on this district.
I know, and the board should know.
Everything that you don't know is positive.
Okay.
It
Larry,
doesn't take the time to learn about the positives that happen in this district.
Larry, I focus on fixing things that are broken. I don't fix things that
Then
are
you should
fine.
look yourself in the mirror, sir.
So, one more time. If you'd like to have a district that works, when an agreement is made, it's usually written by two parties. The district and the party that the district's having an agreement with. That's pretty standard operating procedure. Both of those get reviewed by either their attorneys prior to it getting to this board. Secondly, the state auditor general years ago chastised this district specifically for memorandums of understandings that were not properly written. This goes back to the Dave Krause here and the Bowman here and the other knuckleheads, right? So that memorandum of understanding was not legally reviewed, and this board back then approved it. Here's a memorandum of understanding that nobody in this room knows who wrote it. It's on the agenda. We don't know if it was even reviewed by our council, was it?
Yes.
And what was your advice on this?
I haven't seen anything blatantly wrong.
Did you tell that advice to the board as a whole?
Board as a whole never asked me.
Thank you. So that's the problem. Until this board follows some proper protocol about how management works. It's oversight, Larry. You can't just turn a blind eye your whole life. You can't, especially after 5 years, the auditor said, you specifically in this board didn't do your job. Year after year. The judge says, malfeasance, you can't do it, Larry. You gotta change your ways.
That's why I'm still sitting here, Mr. Bradley.
Scary, isn't it? I'm fine with scary, because you got a memorandum of understanding, no one in this room knows who wrote it.
Both parties wrote it.
My point's made.
Both parties wrote it and were reviewed by council. Just a minute, too. Huh? That's the way it goes, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Full, since I struck the document here, does that make it a new motion? I didn't change the motion. I just referenced that we were striking that particular clause in the job description.
Just put some salary and membership going forward.
Okay, yes, it does.
Okay, I was just asking only because, was it stricken only from the business affairs, human resources?
Yes.
Job description? Okay, that was my question.
Thank you, Barbara. Any further questions? Roll call vote on the job descriptions, please, Ms. Pertini.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers?
No?
Mr. Richard Belts?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahoney? Yes. Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
Reassignments, I need a motion and a second to approve the following reassignments and salaries for the Act 93 employees pending any necessary documentation. Rebecca Popowitz to Business Affairs, Human Resources Coordinator at a salary of $48,000 prorated for the 2021-2022 school year. Melissa Volkswagen to Director of Instructional Technology Integration and Curricular Innovation, $88,000 prorated for the 2021-2022 school year. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Ellie, Mr. Holland. Discussion on these reassignments.
Larry, I'm going to try this. See if you can put on your big boy hat and try it. Okay, here we go. If the district is run by the community hiring a board, electing the board to oversee every dollar collected and how it's spent and where it goes. And that goes to the administration, your subordinates, that you then have run the district as your CEO and all these employees. And your board is to oversee that. And you just stated 10 minutes ago that the administration runs the district and you're not around. Why are you being asked, why are you being asked to authorize this change? And if you are being asked to authorize this change, what responsibility do you have as a director to make an educated decision on whether or not this change should go or not go forward? The question's going to be why.
The reason the changes come to the.
I asked Mr. Stern.
Please?
Because
I asked Mr. Stern. You can answer for him, but he needs to
Because
answer.
we've been told this even when we were in the exec session. When there is a change of salary or anything like that, that needs board approval.
Correct. And why does the board have the authority and the responsibility to make these decisions?
Because it is a change in the.
Once again, let Larry answer, please. I love that you defend him. It's great, right? You know, in essence, you have to answer to him. He's the board. But let's let Larry answer, because I think Larry's confused. It'd be nice if you could really think it through and ask a responsible response to the people that he serves to answer why this is on the board and what information did he collect and do to make this decision as whether or not this should take place or not take place. Because I believe this was put on the agenda by the administration, not Larry, who admitted he doesn't do it. And I think I would consider that to be a lobbyist to say, dear board, give us more money. I want these people to do this stuff. And he's making a blind, trusted, responsible decision instead of being informed like a director is supposed to be. So I'm asking, why is it on
I'll
the
make a
agenda?
statement, I'll make a statement,
Thank you.
Mr. Bradley, and you're very well aware of the realignments that have occurred, or that are being proposed to occur within the district. Many of them are on, 2 of them are on here. Reassignment of other positions aren't. You realize that the reassignment of those positions is actually saving the district about $80,000 in the 2021-22 school year. Because the people are stepping up to the plate, and they're going to be doing these jobs without replacing other people that were there previously. So we do have a cost savings incurred by the reassignments, which were presented to you in the most recent meetings, and of course you made those documents public. I mean, they're part of the public documents that were provided. So that is my statement. You understood those documents inaccurately. That's my statement. Thank you very much.
So, Joy, do you want to step in on this one too? About, we're basically, in essence, the certain employees are electing to either, I guess, is Tim Tack retiring or not?
We're not talking about Tim Tack in this motion.
Okay. Well,
No, we're not talking about Tim
all
Tack.
right. So certain individuals are no longer be with the organization, at which point their responsibilities have to be assigned to either new employees to replace them or other
No,
people, right?
You
So-
convolute everything that you possibly can. You didn't understand it Wednesday, and you don't understand it today.
So explain it to the people that we
No,
work
I'm not
for.
explaining it.
No, we work for the people, explain it to them.
I'd like to hear.
Yeah, they definitely want to hear it. We want to know why you're giving more money to somebody that's a salaried employee to do work within a district. Are they going to work overtime?
Because the people are here an awful long time.
Yeah, so they're working overtime? Are we authorizing overtime here?
It's not overtime.
Are we picking the best employee for the job?
Yes,
Are we opening up the opportunity to a whole bunch of hurting community that would love to have a job at this district and get all these benefits? I mean, the benefits in this district are greater than the salary a lot of times. To the point where if you run any business and you have one family member that covers your whole family for employment, it's a huge dollar amount that this community has to pay for each and every one of these people put on this district.
You act like you can just willy-nilly change that benefit package. Guess what? You can't.
One more time, you can.
You can't.
Why can't you
You
change
have to
it?
get agreement.
Yeah, and how to get this agreement, Larry? Who's in charge of that?
Oh, now you're gonna go down there. I'm done.
Yeah, we're gonna go down the road. Who's responsible? It's the board, Larry. You're missing the whole big
On the reassignment.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
I have a
whoa.
question.
The people want to hear an answer. They asked why.
These 2 people are here, I know.
Yeah, they're currently employed by the district.
Is the other lady here?
Yes.
Yes, she's
Could we meet her? Could
She's
she
a
introduce
principal.
herself?
She's a principal at
She's right there.
the,
I haven't met her as a principal.
at the elementary school.
Yeah, she's right there.
Oh, no, that's me. I mean, I'd like to know her
And she
background in
previously was in
IT.
a role with technology.
Yes, she was Steve.
You know, I'd like to hear about her background in IT.
She was a STEAM coordinator.
There's a lot more.
The STEAM coordinator for NEF on the second period or the first one?
I don't think she was.
And secondly, hold on a second, of all the IT people in the world, right, did we put this out for bid at all and see how we're gonna spend this money? I mean, you're spending thousands of dollars, their money. Shouldn't you have an opportunity before you hire people to do a job to make sure it's open to the public? I mean, this is a government agency, right? We're a government agency. This is like a government civil service test to say, hey, who's gonna do the job?
It's not completely, it's instructional technology coordinator, so it's geared around curriculum integrating into technology. So this isn't like what you would consider a technology director.
Yeah, it's not our IT director.
This is currently like technology, the online programs that we have that we talked about, the Canvas program, she runs that whole thing.
Can I speak up for her?
Sure.
Well, before you do that, hold on, the board's discussing
Why
this.
don't we let somebody
The
else?
board's discussing it, but the question is,
Mr. Tax
why
speak. Let
have we
Mr.
not
Tax
bid out
speak.
this job?
Let Mr. Tax speak.
There you go.
On behalf, I'd like to say, Mrs. Wolfsky, as you said, this is not an IT position. It's an integration of technology into the classrooms. Mrs. Wolfsky has been very instrumental and the lead person for integrating Canvas, putting all of the software, all the different programs, all the teacher programs, their classes all this past year with the pandemic and everything else. She was the person that spearheaded all that professional development for all the teachers, provided the training, provided the program for them, met with them, set everything up, did all that work. She did all the legwork.
She was the one that also was going through when we had with our science, not with the NEF, but when we had our other stuff, when we started with STEM, and we started all of that. She was very instrumental in doing that. So she has been the spearhead that has been taking care of all that, integrating the technology into the classrooms with the curriculum that they're using. That's the key component in making sure that the teachers are comfortable getting the professional development as we're looking to go to one-to-one with Chromebooks so that they have all that. She's been instrumental in doing that, starting to take that, the bull by the horn, and setting that up. So again, this is not the IT position where you're looking at infrastructure, switches, and all that stuff. You're talking about finally integrating technology into the curriculum to the students as they're going through there. And the kids now know, and the big thing like you were talking about earlier with absenteeism and different things of that, and if their kid or child does end up being quarantined, all that's there on campus. So you can go in as a parent or anything, look up their class, see what's needed, what's there. There's all different resources, there's videos, there's how-to programs for them to do that. And this was a person here that was working with the principals, doing all that behind the scenes.
Thank you.
And Mr. Tack, since you brought up the question, this is a position that needs to be filled within our district, obviously, and it's an important one, correct?
Very important, yes.
Excellent. And if you own NEF or you own Kovacs, or you own something, and you had an opening within your company, would you not want the best candidate to do a job?
We're recommending the best
Oh,
candidate.
you recommend, yeah, but only
We're
one.
recommending
So
the best
of which pool of
For our
candidates?
current situation, our district
Well-
is here for transition.
Okay, so
The fact that we could have a smooth transition and that she's completely aware of the Canvas program that we just talked about, we are without a doubt recommending the best candidate for this position.
how many other candidates were considered?
You have my comment, Mr. President.
How many other candidates were considered? Mr. CEO of this corporation that's making a lobbying
Somebody
recommendation.
the internal opportunity to move,
Just ask why.
or you hire from the outside, no matter what, you
Why?
take the other side of the fence. That's because. That's
No,
what
why?
you do. No.
I want to know why.
Why? Because she has experience in it.
I didn't say she wasn't. I think it's awesome. So the question is, our school has an additional targeted support and improvement task. We're on the nasty list because we're not doing the job. So this is an opportunity to change, this is an opportunity to change the process and procedures that are taking place within this district on the hiring process. When you don't check, you're tainting her skills if you don't at least
Mr.
allow her
David
to compete, to be competitive for the position. No.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalan, Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes, and I'd like to say both of these candidates have gone above and beyond and have been doing work, 2 jobs, 3 jobs maybe, and they are very well qualified.
Yes.
Between all the candidates that you reviewed, Rita?
Mr. Wayne Wentz.
How many did you review, Rita?
Stop it.
No, it's wrong. You can't,
No,
you
it's
got a
not
government
wrong.
job you're giving out for $80,000
Yes.
and 44, plus benefits, plus everything else. And you took no other opportunity to look at other parties in play.
6 yes, 3 no.
As a government agency,
On that item.
doesn't it sound really cronyistic? I mean, you taint the skills and
Motion and a
capabilities.
second to approve the following candidate in accordance with respective contracts. Number 1, Nathan Webster, 12-month secretary, with effect.
I apologize for their actions.
Paperwork and an
It's
annual
wrong.
salary of $27,328 prorated for the 2021-2022 school year. Need a motion and a second, please.
Second.
Godwin, second by Mr. Wentz. Discussion on the hire. Subject D. Any discussion?
Once again, this board has not been reviewed, or any of the candidates, any of the people. It's blind, completely blind to this process. And millions of dollars gets paid out. Every year, $40 million is taken from the public and given out. And these blind trust rubber stamps of a board that has no oversight. Devoid of the
I
responsibility.
believe if any of the information the board would like to see concerning the selection process is public information. Is that correct, Mrs. Holmes? Yeah.
No, not only how many applied, but the board should also see who applied, their resumes, and what their experiences are.
You expose yourself.
You should have, the board has every right to review it, and the board, no, it does not. There is no liability. They're applying for a public job. There's no liability. There's none.
All those in favor of subject candidate for employment, make record for the Parliament Secretary, say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No.
7-2. Ayes have it. The candidates, the motion and a second to approve the following request for summer positions as per collective bargaining contracted rates funded by the Title I Consolidated Grant pending any necessary paperwork. Number of hours, dates and times available may vary according to registration confirmation. Zaner, Tiffany Stroudsburger, and Bill Zeppi. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Melly?
I'll second.
Fuller? Any discussion on the summer positions for title camps? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstain, lack of information.
No.
7-1. Ayes have it. Candidates for ESA, extended school year. Need a motion and a second to approve the following request for extended school year positions as per collective bargaining contracted rates pending any necessary paperwork. David? Joseph? Zoe David, sorry about that. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Wentz, any discussion? Any questions? This is in addition to what we had.
This extended school year, yeah.
There was other ones that we approved.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
This is an addition.
Yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
41. And item G, candidates for athletic coach and manager or extracurricular activities. Need a motion and a second to approve the following request for athletic coach and manager candidates as per the contracted rates pending any necessary paperwork for the 2021-2022 school year. List attached. Mr. Wentz?
I'll second.
Mr. Fuller? Discussion on item G. Hearing none. All those in favor of item G, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstain, lack of information.
No.
7-1-1. Candidates for substitute list. I need a motion and a second to approve the following list of requested candidates for 2021-2022 substitute list pending any necessary paperwork. This full to paraprofessional / secretary. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Elliott?
I'll second.
Mr. Fuller? Questions on the substitute list? Hearing none. All those in favor of item H, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstention, lack of information.
8-1. On to mentors. I need a motion and a second to approve the following recommendations to hire the following mentor for the appropriate teacher for the 2021-2022 school year. Kara Barrett, Zoe David, Carrie Kinney, Samantha Elliott, Elias, Eric Mushrush, Justin Ungaro, Brian Buffington, Lydia DeWall. Need a motion and a second, please, on the mentors.
So moved.
Bradley? Second. Mr. Wentz? Discussion on the mentorships? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Student teaching experience. Need a motion and a second to approve the experiential learning for the following student teachers pending any necessary documentation for the 2021-2022 school year. Ms. Victoria Langen, Seton Hall, Questions on the student teachers? Hearing none. All those in favor of item J, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Health and safety plan for the school year. Need a motion and a second to approve the revision to the Ioneary School District Health and Safety Plan for the 2021-2022 school year for attachment. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Fuller,
Second.
Ms. Valley. Questions on the health and safety plan?
What is the health and safety plan?
It's an attachment that is for the reopening of schools.
Okay, and what is on that?
It's the
Masks, or masks are my main concern, what's that?
masks that we're following, and then they will be optional for the school.
Parents' choice,
That's,
okay? What, is that coming September, is that coming August, or is that effective immediately right now?
for this, we do it now.
No.
Because my child was supposed to have been at the title reading program today. I didn't send her because of the mask issue. But I was told last week
Yeah, we were-
she had to wear them.
Right.
So that was last week. Yeah.
Okay, so now it's our choice,
Yes.
okay?
Okay.
And she'll be there tomorrow, then, okay?
And again, as Mr. Krieger stated earlier in the meeting concerning busing, since it's public transportation, and
That-
students on the bus.
Yeah, my children then won't be riding the bus. I'll take them to and from.
Thank you.
Yep. Like you said, it's my choice, so, yeah, I know. Gotta take care of that, yep.
Questions
And-
from, yeah, questions from the board on the health and safety plan? Hearing none. All those in favor of the health and safety plan signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Emergency instructional time. Need a motion and a second to approve the enclosed emergency instructional time template for section 520.1 for the 2021 and 2022 school year for attachment. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Melly?
I'll second.
Mr. Fuller? Any questions on the emergency instructional time template? Would you like to just state what that is?
Yeah, this is the instructional time template that we're required as part of the ESERs, that we're required to fill this out. This is in the event that we do any type of alternative methods for online learning. So for example, snow day, if you go to virtual to count as a day of school, this allows us to do that. So the template, if you go online, you can see that it's a sample of the weekly schedule. It is pretty much the same as it was last year, minus the Zooming and that type of.
And you'll call us in the morning, or you usually get a
Yeah,
phone call
yeah.
that says virtual today or canceled or whatever.
The plan for next year with the school calendar is that the first 3 snow days will be true snow days.
Will be
So the
true,
makeup
okay.
day is the,
Okay.
we have a day in January, then we have the Thursday, the Friday, the President's Day weekend, and then the third makeup day would be the Thursday of the spring break or Easter. But anything above and beyond, we will use virtual days as long as there's a power outage at.
Right, and then those were counted as days that you don't
Because of
have to
getting
make up
this
because
approved.
you were in school.
Yeah, and so we can keep the last day, graduation, and all those days the same, and there won't be all this movement.
Gotcha.
throughout the year.
Yep.
And how are we dealing when kids are online learning or distant learning for their attendance? That was an issue last year that they weren't being properly attended, or if they didn't turn in a certain amount of work, that it was a mess. What have we done to resolve that?
The students would be required to log on and complete the work that is assigned for that day. That would be the attendance. The bigger issue was when we had extended periods, like months at a time when they were virtual. That was when the attendance became. So the students would be able to log on, complete their assignments, and as long as their assignments are turned in, they get credit for being present that day.
So it's asynchronous through Canvas. They can log on at any time as long as their assignments are submitted by a certain time.
Not for everybody. It's depending on the
Yeah, because
set
I
of
know my student tried to sign on many times, and he was always waiting for the teacher.
Right.
and then he'd leave after 10 minutes and the teacher wasn't there. Then the teacher would decide to come on, then he would be marked absent because he wasn't there.
I'm not exactly.
Okay, I'm just giving any, I'm just.
And then the accountability of why wasn't the person there, what are these kids doing?
That, you know.
I mean, I can go, attendance at the high school was not taken by attendance in Zoom, it was taken by completion of assignments, and depending on what platform they were in, it was either 2:15 or 11:59 at night, so.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it just depends, there were multiple, there were 5 platforms going on,
My son
so.
signed on a lot, and he was always waiting for the teacher.
When they're waiting for the
And the teacher
teacher.
would take roll call, and then say, okay, maybe talk 5-10 minutes, now go on your canvas and do your works. Okay, but according to everything, if he didn't sign on at that specific time that the class started, even if he turned his work in, he was marked absent.
We
My
heard
child
that,
was marked absent over 10 days because he waited for this specific teacher all the time.
we heard that
Never
from,
showed up, and then he gets marked absent.
we heard that from many people, so the question becomes,
Mr. Bradley.
excuse me,
Mr. Bradley.
you're engaging people you work for. So the question is, when that happened, did you Miss, when that was occurring and your student was devoid of that opportunity,
Yes.
did you file or write a formal written complaint to this government board to say?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I will tell you, no, I did not. I did voice my concerns when I talked to, there were a few teachers, because I had 3 students in school this year. Now, I only have 2, because one graduated.
Why didn't you file a formal written complaint?
I can't give you a reason for that. I don't know, because I know they had a lot of problems. Canvas was always up, Canvas was always down. Kids could go on their computer and do their assignments, kids could not go on their computer and do their assignments. There was lots of times where kids could not get on Zoom to get on their classroom, to get at least the face. I have little ones, so Zoom was nice face-to-face, so you could actually see. That was their best thing, being home. But when they couldn't get on and do their assignments, and I understand then that the grade always went by what you put in and what you put out. So if my child could not get on due to things, they could not complete the assignment, then they were given a 0 for the assignment.
And that's doing a disservice to the child. So we as a board need to educate our constituents, the people we work for, that the process of this government is to file a formal written complaint. It goes directly to the board, they have to address it. Our subordinate administration will address each and every complaint. If you don't get a satisfaction, the complaint gets escalated, you go back to the board, and then you hold them
Thank
accountable.
you. I just wanted to know if there was a problem.
I think
that
everyone
went
needs to hear
off,
that.
How the attendance would go and how the I could understand everybody was boggled up this year, and the teachers and the school did everything the best they could. Okay? It was, and I know you were going by what you were told and this and that and everybody else, I get that. But it just seemed to keep the kids down a little bit for the ones that couldn't get on. Then they were so stressed and so worried because, oh my God, I'm not gonna turn the assignment in, I'm gonna get a 0. Then they were worried about failing because of not being able to get on. That's all I'm saying, is that you guys did what you could do, but the days, if it does come to a lot of virtual days and they can't sign on, you know, how is that gonna play
Yeah,
out?
that'll
Or
have to
you're gonna
be-
get an absent and you're not
They
absent.
have to notify it, because there was times too that we did have certain areas that didn't have power.
Correct.
There was
I'm
issues.
in the woods.
Yeah. there were
So
certain
I
times.
have a lot of trouble signing on and off. I know exactly what it's like, even just being out there normally.
Our son always did graduate.
Yeah, that's why I said lots of times he was online waiting and he didn't do it. Or he left because the teacher didn't show up.
The money follows the student. You guys have control over it. It's your responsibility to make sure if we're not doing our job, you complain, and then we have to address it. If you don't like it, you take it
Thank you,
somewhere.
and thank you.
It works.
for allowing me to ask, thank you.
Any further discussion on item B? Hearing none, roll call vote, all those in favor of item B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The ATSI school plan. I need a motion and a second to CLI 2021. There is an addition on, actually, we got two problems on it. The first on the agenda is 2020, 2021, it's 2021, 2022. Okay? And the second one on the document, on the first page, on the second to last line, it should be 90%, not 100%.
Thank you, Ms. Welch.
So,
Excuse me, did you guys?
Sorry, I've got an eye for detail that jumped right out at me.
The district Wi-Fi
If we
for
could
guests
open
is
it
down.
down.
Is there any reason for that? What is that?
It goes down a certain period of time every day because we don't want people outside because it's a non-public network. It's a public network, but not protected.
So you're saying that the Wi-Fi for this board meeting is down?
Maybe for you.
It's not programmed for the Wi-Fi?
I'm programmed on the district.
Oh, these on the district website.
Yeah, you're on the admin
Yes.
server, so the guest server goes down at 9 o'clock?
I
So-
do
so
not
we're-
know the answer to that.
So do you have do you have an admin code so I can get back in? You do not have the ability to, you do not have the ability to let a board member get back into the Wi-Fi of this district? I suggest we recess the meeting until such time we can have access to our.
access to all the documents.
Yeah, you have the documents in front of you, Mr. So we need a motion and a second to approve the 2021-2022 ATSI updated and evaluated plan from 2018-2019 school year under direction and guidance from CLI 21 with the amendment to the document and then to the agenda item. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Fuller,
Second.
Ms. Pinelli, any comments from the board on the ATSI plan?
I want to know how we got on this system in the first place and how so many students were failed. And I mean, how was this not checked? I mean, was it a trend? Did this all of a sudden just happen? Or was it a trend that went down to the point where we fell below the comprehensive support improvement program and went all the way down to this lower level of additional targeted support and improvement program? Was anybody watching this on the administration side, Mr. Cleaver?
Yes, and we've had this discussion, and I explained to you last time about the subgroups. This was discussed at the last two academic affairs committee meetings as well. Ms. Holland, if you want to address.
So again, I think at the academic affairs, we reviewed over that the information that placed us on the additional targeted support intervention plan, the ATSI plan, otherwise known by the state, is a 3-year plan, Mr. Bradley. The data that has us placed in this plan, I have it in front of my hand right now, is based off multiple categories. The data that they used to place us on the ATSI plan is based off of 2016-17 data and 17-18 data for achievement in math and ELA combined, growth in math and ELA combined, and regular attendance from the 2015-16 school year. We are in year 3 of the plan. We've reviewed over this plan for the past 3 years each year. First year was obviously the year prior to COVID. Last year with COVID, part of the plan was looking at our data and growth to make sure we're showing growth with keystone assessments and CDTs. Unfortunately, COVID happened and all test scores were kind of thrown out the window by the state. This year, part of the plan, as you can see, and it's sent out to every parent at the high school via the alert system, is that beginning of the fall 2021, we'll continue to work on growth in ELA and math, special education students. All students will be testing the keystone subject areas, working on improving social and emotional learning at the high school, curriculum development and revision, collaboration with staff to support curriculum design, student data-driven decisions, and using the SEL based off PDE school climate survey that was sent out to all, actually K-12, we ended up sending. We started at the high school through collaboration with the IU, and received data on that, and we're using that data to drive our instruction for the K-12 professional development for the school year.
And it was special needs that we locked our focus?
It was, again, I said there were 3 sections, achievement in math and ELA combined, and growth, and that was for a small population of special needs students, correct. The growth rate was supposed to be below of 1.1 on PBOS. We were a negative 1.56 back again in the 16-17 school year and 17-18. Attendance has improved. Obviously, those numbers are going to be skewed, as we just heard with COVID this year. We're not really sure how that's going to be tracked. And you know, attendance, unfortunately, is a dicey thing at the high school to track. COVID made it a nightmare. The state puts really strict requirements on us on how we would track that, and with multiple platforms, we did our best to make sure that happens, and we tried to prevent any kid from falling through the gaps, and go from there, so. The plan was reviewed over at Academic Affairs multiple times. Do you have any other questions?
No further questions on subject matter C?
I will correct that 900, I apologize, I just looked down and saw that.
Yeah.
That'll take 10 seconds to correct the computer.
It's okay.
Should say
Yeah,
900.
2021, 2022, we had an agenda for 2021. Any comments from the public on that particular item? Thank you for your support.
I think we should take extra care with these IEPs to make sure they get done, because when we don't, that's what puts this district in court, and then we have to pay both attorneys, and not taking care of IEP students is just in.
This doesn't have to do with IEP compliance, it has to do with growth rate, just so that there's a delineation and again, and
If they're not if we're responsible to provide a free and public education to a standard.
yes, sir.
If they fall below the standard, we're not doing our job. We have to do a better job. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Right. You mentioned lawsuits.
Yeah, and if we don't use an IEP and we don't comply with IEPs, like in the past, we end up having to pay 2 sets of attorneys to fight for a very long period of time, and this poor child in his IEP not getting the education during that fight, everybody loses money, and the student suffers the most. Thank you. Lack of managerial oversight by a board can resolve these issues.
Back on item C, APSI plan. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. The high school handbook, need a motion in a second to approve the revisions to the high school handbook for the 2021-2022 school year. Sorry about that.
I'll second.
Yeah. Nathan? Questions on the handbook? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay. Or abstention, lack of information.
801. On the subject, the school handbook, we need a motion and a second to approve the revisions to the middle school handbook 2021-2022 school year per attachment. A motion and a second, please.
Motion.
Mr. Holland, Mr. Wentz. Any questions, concerns on the middle school handbook?
Why didn't all these handbooks go through a handbook committee meeting like we did in the past to allow the public to have input?
We only ever did that once.
One time.
Yeah, I know, and it was excellent, so why didn't we do
It
this?
was not excellent, there was so limited participation, it was.
It was bad. You need to increase the participation, that's the whole point.
That's why we're sending it out to everybody.
That's your
There was no
job.
participation from the
Seek
public on the
input.
handbooks. Right here, we do seek.
LASD
input.
policy. You're doing it wrong.
Thank you.
You're definitely doing it wrong.
All those in favor of the handbook signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstention, lack of information from the public.
Use of school property. I need a motion and a second to approve the use of school property for the following requests. 1, pre-K counts, Mrs. Maloney, August 18th.
So
Motion and a
moved.
second, please. Mr. Holland,
I'll second.
Mr. Fuller. Any questions on the use of school property? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstention, lack of public information.
Okay. Any communications? Director's concerns, we have none. On the public comment?
Hang on, I have 2, which have been under new business. Under new business, I'd like to add the curriculum to the website under the tab curriculum as we have proposed in the past. Can I get a second on the motion?
Would you please explain what you just said? I couldn't have read.
Add the curriculum of
Curriculum on the
this
tab,
district
the curriculum.
onto the district website under the tab curriculum, where it then identifies elementary school, middle school, high school. Thank you.
Thank you for being specific, Mr. Bradley.
Have you never been to our website under curriculum?
I do think that sounds like a good idea, that we can at least
Okay.
list the things that are available under those things. That
Second.
sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, you can second that.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. A motion and a second. Any discussion on the board? Any posting of or updating the curriculum information on the
I
website?
mean, it could say the different teachers that are available for different subject matters, you know, Spanish or German or whatever. So people have an idea of what's here. When they look at our school, they go under
Or
our.
links there to the team sites that Mr. Bradley.
Or if you go into the school buildings, are listed there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So links
Just
in there.
need
to
one
the
more
proper
place
places to find it.
to find
I think it's a
information.
redirection probably is all that's needed.
Probably.
Any questions from the, Fred?
So real quick, a couple meetings ago, a gentleman brought up about the curriculum, whether or not we're going to do like diversity training with the kids or different aspects of CRT with each.
Oh.
So my question is,
Let's get through this, maybe what,
It's on the curriculum. Floor's open. Speak, Fred, please.
what I'm saying
Don't let
is,
them shut you up.
if that's a part of our curriculum, I'm asking if that's a part of the curriculum, a lot of parents are concerned about.
That currently.
Would it show up under curriculum at that point?
There is that, when you're talking CRT, critical race theory, what is taught in our classrooms would not fall under that umbrella. So you'd be able to see what's actually being taught, but it would not fall under the critical race theory umbrella. And again, if you're asking for my opinion, everyone looks at it different.
And it wasn't my.
Right, I'm just saying, it's discussion, it's a hot topic throughout the nation, and at this point, our curriculum has not changed from what it currently is.
Do we enforce the fact that these teachers within our staff are monitored and reviewed, that they stick to the curriculum that is published? And if so, what oversights has this board put in place to ensure that what is published as a curriculum is actually what's being taught in the classrooms and or on Zooms? Because we've also had similar complaints of what's going on in the background of these Zoom classes. COVID was very transparent with what's happening within classrooms. So what is the board's oversight and control over what's actually happening within the school? Because we have not had that access. Has anyone on this board had that access to review that? Ever?
to specifically do what, Mr. Bradley?
Ensure that the staff
Specifically
members.
go into the classroom?
Let me finish. To ensure, our job is to provide oversight to the subordinate administration to ensure that the staff members comply with all of our policies and ensure that the curriculum to which was published is being followed, to make sure every employee shows up on time, to make sure they do their job, and we make sure we protect these students and save this community by using proper procedures. It's been flawed. Our auditor, the auditor general, the judges, it's all, the Office of Open Records, they've all found flaws with the way this government has been operating. So we want to correct it. So my question was.
Let's go back to the curriculum vote first. How about we do that?
You can do that. Go for it, Larry.
Any other comments on the curriculum being posted on the website? Anything from the board?
I have one question, and I think this is a question that a lot of families have in this town and probably throughout the United States. You said that you guys have diversity training, which is probably awesome. If you guys decide, and that's a big if, so David, it's an if, hypothetical question, to go and use the critical race theory, will you be letting the public and the parents know that in advance?
If we are deciding to make that as part of our.
Yes. How would that work?
I think the thing is, critical race theory is such a broad word.
Right.
So saying that we're teaching it and how you teach it can be two different things. Like, I really don't know that I can can even answer that. Like, if they're in a political science class and they're talking about things that happened in the past, it may reference, something that now falls under the guidelines of, that theory. So it's hard, it's difficult. It's a difficult
No, I
subject.
understand that
It's a
completely.
difficult discussion to have. It's one of those things that everyone, I think, has their own opinion on it. But as far as that, it would have to relate somehow to the current.
Right.
Like, we can't just go and have the Spanish teacher in class talking about
Sure.
that stuff. It have to be related to that curriculum.
My thoughts were, well, I know this is gonna age me quite a bit, and so.
We're all aged.
Depends on the
Our
end.
parents had to sign permission for us to do the sex education in health and gym and all that stuff.
Correct.
So would this be something, if you guys, let's say the government said, okay, this is gonna be part of your curriculum. This is just a suggestion, would parents be able to opt out? This is just a thought in case, God forbid this happens.
If the federal government makes it a requirement, for example, health class,
Right.
the kids are required to take health class when they graduate from Pennsylvania. And really, that's a federal piece of it too. We would be required to follow the federal and state guidelines, because if you don't, that can affect your, and they can take your funding away.
Your funding, sure, I understand.
So if it came down from them, then we would be required to, teach it, or however they want to teach it. If they make it part of the standards, and kids are gonna be, again, being tested on it as part of the state assessment, there's a lot of, like I
Right,
said,
there's a lot of
that word if is
Right.
used.
But under F,
I mean, like, I've asked.
But the question
how
is,
they-
would you tell the parents?
how
Yes,
does that teach it?
yes.
but let's also be clear that the real power, the authority is with the community that elects a board that says, thank you federal for providing me money to take this poison pill. I don't want it. Have a nice day. And if you have people in this board that you've elected to reject that poison pill, so be it. If you don't, you're going to hear what he said, which is if they force you and mandate, they can never force or mandate. This school is your government agency. It's your government agency, and you can either reject their money or not reject their money.
They
Thank you.
absolutely force us to do it. They're forcing us to wear
Well, that's
masks
fine.
on public transportation. So yes, they can force us to do it.
For the things at the topic, that would be in the front page of every paper that the government sent.
Thank you. But right, and this government can, just like the government can reject, just like this government can help reject Common Core, and this government can reject a lot of things within the district. And they rejected all your other transportation, didn't they, last year, right? So they can do that too. So this board is the one that has the power and authority for your government within your district. We're the ones that are elected. They're the ones that are responsible. And if they're not being responsible, seek their resignation because they're not being responsible.
Mr. Nathan Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahoney.
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli.
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz.
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers.
Yes.
Mr. Richard Bell.
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley.
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes. Motion carries.
My next one for new business is this board has been living in a vacuum when it comes to who's on the staff, how many staff members we need, what they're used for, what their responsibilities are, what their time is, and it's that piece of the puzzle that equals the major portion of the funds that are collected and dispersed within this district. And in my tenure here, we have watched as we removed many of the superfluous staff members. We removed a lot of work within the district because it was fluff. And it's still continuing, it's getting better, but until transparency exists within this district, you're gonna have problems. So I move that the hiring process is adjusted so that the board gets to see all of the information from all the candidates that apply for a job, and that every job is published so that the entire pool population of, quote, the world has an opportunity to work within this great district. Can I get a second on the motion that all positions will be advertised for open and access of application, and all applications will be provided to the board to make sure that we're getting the proper candidates for this committee, the committee that's not even meeting, for the board to be able to select from? Because I think they're doing it kind of like that gym floor where they ask for one person to apply, one person gets the job. Can I get a second on that motion, please?
I'll second it.
Any comment from the board?
Just like to say, as I understand correctly, some of this restructuring is more, we have these people working for us, we'd like to move them to this new position. The way of doing that in a proper organized way is writing a job description, so that everybody's clear on what that person is going to do in a new role. It doesn't necessarily mean a new position, and wouldn't necessarily be effective to open that job up to the new public and just continue to add new staff members to our roles as people sit there in existing jobs that have lesser responsibility at this point.
It's still hiring somebody. You're still hiring a position. You want to get the best person for the job. You can't write a job description that matches somebody's criteria so that you can pigeonhole them into that position. You got to look at the district as if it's, you got to look at the district as if it's a company that has a responsibility to educate students, and therefore the best person for the job is going to do it.
Information, personal information, that's a liability with them.
Well, that's
There's no liability with giving board members information about people that are applying. There's
In a
none.
special session, and you publish somebody's information on the internet.
It was published when it gave it to the district, and the district gave it to those people, so therefore it's published.
Any comments from the public on that particular?
If you don't want to publish it, you redact it. But the criteria should be there. You should know what these people have the qualifications for the job to make sure that the board, the oversight, is done with these taxpayers' money. To not do that is
I
irresponsible.
don't believe that if you come in to look at it, you wouldn't see it, but you're not going to get a copy of it.
You're wrong, Larry.
I don't think so.
You're wrong. We just asked how many people applied, they won't answer.
So I agree with Nathan. If it's a brand new job, I can understand putting it out for, like Ms. Fortino came on with the district because it's a brand new job. And two that were promoted were already doing the job within the district. And I'm a promote from within type of person, you know, because it adds value to the core group that's there. So it seems like it's apples and oranges, continuous situation and the situation now, and I agree with it.
Thank you, Fred. Any other comments?
And we all agree that promote from within and also educate so that you can fulfill within. When we had to run and find someone new for the business manager position because we didn't educate someone within our own administration, that's an issue. So when you look at the position, they should be able to do it. Someday we're going to need a new superintendent, and I hope someone gets a superintendent's license in this district so they have an opportunity to fulfill that spot, so we don't have a traveling superintendent, we have someone local. I don't know anybody that could actually do that.
I would agree 100%. She would do a fantastic job. I've actually had that conversation with her many times. Sorry, Steve.
I would also just like to say, I've heard it mentioned many times that it's best if the board hires, but I've read best practice on every state in this country, as well as best practice for corporate. It is not the board's job to select. It is the board's job to hire. Selection, and you will, if you lived back in the time when I did, there's a local district here, the board was so nepotistic, so prone to nepotism, that if their neighbor wanted a job, they went after the board member. That's why this district decided to go with the policy we have, because that is best practice. And you can tell me anything you want, but I've looked at every state, I've looked at corporate, I've looked at PSBA, I've looked at NEA. That is best practice, and that's all I'm going to say.
But Rita, if you look at our own staff, yeah, no, Rita, but if you look at our own staff last names within this community, you would recognize, when Larry stands up in a meeting at that podium and said that every one of his kids got a job here.
Oh boy, they were groundskeepers. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's right. And groundskeepers, Larry,
And actually, you're wrong. It was not every one of my kids. My two boys did. My daughter never set foot and worked in this facility.
So one more time, you said.
No, I did not.
But at
I
the
did
same
not.
time, when you hear that.
I did not. You're lying again, David. You're
What did you
lying.
say then?
David, you're lying.
What are the odds, hold on, what are the odds that your family members all got jobs? There's a whole bunch of people who love groundskeeper. I know it's only groundskeeper, but for a kid who's trying to make it to college, it should be, if it's a lottery, make it a lottery. If you're gonna make it fair, make it fair. It's a government, you can't play favorites, Larry. And you and I both know they play favorites.
You work here. Every kid got hired.
It's wrong. It's wrong.
You don't know anything you're talking about.
Oh, Larry, it's wrong. You knew, you stood there and you said, oh, you did, you said, you work here, you said, wife work here.
You're a person's ass.
Yeah, look at the names, Larry. Bring them up. Show them
I'm
nepotism.
also just going to say very quickly, you can't turn around in this town without knocking into somebody who has the same name as someone else. I'm sorry. I'm Naomi Spinelli.
And that's fine, Rita, I don't mind that. Rita, I don't mind that. The idea is that the job position needs to be open. The job position needs to be open. We have a motion and a second.
I disagree. I gave a motion from what's in. Thank you, Walter.
Well, we agree with that, but the position has to be open and all the applicants have to apply. And then if the person gets special credit for being within, makes sense, just like a civil service, they get extra points for being in the military, extra points.
We interview somebody from another district, when we have somebody in our own district, get a lady here.
What happens if that person's 3 times better to do the job we have to read?
We already had to get our hands on, how would somebody else be better for the other district than somebody who's already at the trainer?
What is the harm in opening the positions up? I'm not saying you don't hire the most qualified person, which in this situation, and I'm not even talking about the IT position, I'm more looking at the HR position.
I will say one thing, that when we have someone within, and there are certain positions we have to open up, like if it's a vacated teaching position, it's in their contract that we have to open it. But we will open up only internally, because it may be a second grade teacher wants to apply for a title position. Well, if we open it up, now we have a vacated elementary position. So that position then may be opened up to everybody. But
After you do it internally.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how that works.
So the other
I just
part-
think it's more beneficial when you see more people. That's all.
The other thing.
And this is a government, we should be opening it up completely and then making the decision.
Mr. Bradley, are you done, please?
No, I'm not. And until you understand the concept that you need to open up, it's a government. It's not your personal playground to decide who you're giving the money to instill loyalty to make sure that they're not going to check and balance against you. Too much intimidation is taking place within this district.
What if you open it up and our good candidate sees an opening at another facility?
There you go.
And then we lose our best candidate because we're waiting for.
I'm happy for anyone that finds the best opportunity to expand their career, and they should take it. If they saw value to it, do it. That's on their benefit. But we should be doing things for the best interest of our employees as a government agency. And internal, I have no problem with internal. We don't have a problem. You have a problem with the fact that you're blocking the district from getting the best candidate, and instead you're pigeonholing, you're getting pigeonholing.
Roll call vote on the motion to open up all hiring documents to the board.
All right.
Again, we're at a circus, I'm sorry.
Melissa Volsky was the principal, I believe, for the intermediate side of DC. So her position is going to have to be filled when she takes this new position, is that correct?
Yes, that'll be a reassignment internally for that position.
Okay, so that would not be something that was needed to be opened up?
No. Any Act 93 position doesn't need to be opened.
Okay, so that's an administrative position, but a professional position would have to be. Okay.
Now, the other thing is though too, with that position being reassigned, that will open up another position that'll be posted for the best candidate.
Only if it's assigned to someone who was a professional. If another.
They would have to have the criteria. Yeah, you have to have a principal certificate. You can't just.
Okay, you have to have a principal
Yeah, you have to have a
certification.
principal certification. You
Just
can't-
like Sue has a superintendent certification.
I do, yes.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone knows. Everyone knows. It's not an issue. It's a problem.
And everyone, and the fact that this district should be getting 5 people with that superintendent certificate so they can review it would be best choice. You can't make a single person choice. It's not a choice. It's a coronation. That's a coronation. You need choices, and applications need choices.
Roll call vote on Mr. Bradley's request and motion, seconded by Gail, I believe. No, seconded by Gail, was it, or? To open up all documentation. Restated, I don't know.
To the board.
Can you-
Yep, to the board.
I think she has it.
Yeah, it was kind of.
Yes, update hiring process to advertise all positions, and all applications are to be provided to the board, for the board to make the best decision.
For the board to review the application process, right? So see, basically we're looking to see who's gonna be applying. If we hire a position, open a position and one applicant shows up, before you just hire the one person, you should probably maybe consider expanding the application process. Maybe you're gonna expand how you advertise, maybe expand how you offer the job and what it's gonna be. The board should manage that.
Okay, so.
Staffing, the board needs to manage the staffing.
Roll call vote on that, Mr. Kenny?
Sure, Mr. Stephen Holland.
No.
Mrs. Gail Mulholland.
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli.
No.
Mr. Wayne Wentz. No. Ms. Joy Beers. Mr. Richard Phelps.
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley.
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller.
No.
Mr. Larry Sturman.
No.
4 yes, 5 no, motion passed.
And for our next meeting, which is going to be in October, I feel like I'm in October.
Now, let's not push it to December already.
There is a new addendum to what they call Act 65, which will limit the amount of information added to the agendas during the meetings. So if you want to brush up on the Act 65 addendum, that would be appreciated. So I'm going to go on to courtesy of the floor. Mr. Bradley?
I said my piece, but I do think that the corruption in this district is paramount. You're not using best practices, and it's obvious that you're not even trying to recognize that unless you're mandated, that your moral standards are the fact that if you can get away with it, you're going to do it. And so far, with the district getting away with it and the malfeasance side, the misfeasance side, and I think neglect side, that the Auditor General should, that warning, and our own auditor warning, should have you guys apologizing and resigning for what you did to this community. It's horrible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kemmer? None? Okay. Mr. Shaner?
This question is for Mr. Barrett, thank you. The $483,112 that was in that food service fund that they're wiping off on paper, over what period of time is that? Do we know?
It goes back.
6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this question is for anybody on the board. Now, I don't know any of the players in any of this, so anybody on the board, please answer this question if you know the answer to it. Does Ms. Karpowitz have a bachelor's degree in human resources business management? That is a question strictly for the board and the board only.
No.
No?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Nobody knows. So we said tonight here that this was the best and most qualified candidate. However, in the job description that you guys just approved, you prefer somebody with a bachelor's degree. Mr. Cleaver, does she have a bachelor's degree in either of those fields?
No, she does not, but I will say she's definitely the best person for the job. She's been doing it, and I believe Mr. Barrett would contest with that. She's been doing everything we're looking at.
It's a very bold statement to say that when you don't know what else is out
Well,
there.
the
And
job-
then we're going to talk about best practices.
I feel very confident.
I'm sorry. I'm sure she'll do a great job. Just look at other people. It takes a little bit of time to review some other resumes and interview people. Please, we want to talk about best practices, Rita. That's a best practice. Open it up, review, see what else is out there, especially when the preferred candidate that you're looking for has something that the person you just hired is.
Mr. Shaner, and I'll go one further. Rebecca, bear with me. Rebecca is a very qualified person, and if we wanted her to be in that position, we should help her get that degree. Why not? We have the capability within this district, and that's how this process is supposed to work. When you elevate the individual staff members, we elevate the district.
When you write a job description for the job, you don't write it for the person. So
Correct.
best practices. Thank you very much for your time.
I believe the job description said must have an associate's
That's
degree.
correct, but we prefer a bachelor's degree.
Right.
So if we prefer that, then we don't look for somebody that has a bachelor's degree.
Right.
It shouldn't be as a preferred qualification.
I would like to comment on this because I came to the district 6 months ago having no background in school business. And I have a four-year bachelor's degree. And I can certainly say it has been a difficult road to learn school business. It's difficult to find people out there with school business background. The fact that Ms. Carpowitz probably knows that business office inside and out and upside down is a testament to her and her ability to learn anything in that office. She is more than qualified for that job, and I will back her 100%.
But can't you see past this as a process?
I don't know any of the players.
Right.
I'm strictly talking about the process.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm sure she's completely qualified.
Thank you.
And that's what everybody's saying, the process has to be reviewed.
Wally?
Whatever.
I just want to thank Mr. Erb for getting back to our group. We're looking at different financial things going on in the district, and he's been very responsive. Had a conversation at the financial meetings, and he hosted that meeting very well. And I appreciate him trying to get our district back on. We had almost 10% in tax increases in 3 years, and personally, it's killing me up there at my house. So if we get this back together, that we can stop these tax increases, that's a good thing. So thank you for what you're doing for our district.
Thank you.
Okay, in the beginning, I asked, when I first got up and spoke, if the two candidates had met the criteria. Does Ms. Carpowitz have an associate's degree in either of those two?
Does she have an associate's degree?
I believe it was stated specifically must have.
That's correct. It is a requirement of the position.
Not that I have any issues with her at all, but I was told at the time that yes, they did meet the requirements of the position.
Associate's degree in HR and a business-related field required.
Preferred.
No, it says required for associates. Anyway, what I really want to speak about.
She did.
Is the answer yes or no?
The answer is no. The job description should have been written.
You're right, it should have been, somebody should have read it. And made sure.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying she's not the best person for the job, she's been doing it, like Ed said, she knows the business office inside and out. Certainly, life experience is often more valuable than what you learn in a classroom. Anyway, what I really wanted to talk about was the $181 million contract that the state just took with a company to COVID test all K through 12 children. And this is a new development.
Who was it? Mark, can you repeat that? Was that it?
I don't know, I don't remember who the company is. But apparently the governor has just, I don't know if it's going to be mandated, if it's only going to be in outbreak areas, but I thought it was something that everyone should be aware of.
Where did you read that?
Numerous places. I couldn't tell.
What, the senator and representative are pushing through, they're talking about doing a.
No, she said that they
I understand.
Mr. Bradley.
No, it's a $181 million contract with a particular company where they come in and test all the kids. I don't know, I don't remember.
but I don't remember where.
Okay. If you could come back up with it?
Yeah, when I find it again,
Yep.
if I can, I will.
I'm sure we'll search it and I'm sure.
So wait a second.
Actually, I think somebody sent it to me and I put it on Build-A-Board. So I can probably get you that information.
It's a statewide contract, but they're looking.
Yes, it is a statewide contract.
Here's the information I have, if you'd like to hear it.
Mr. Bradley, I know it's difficult for you to sit back and just listen to people.
I don't know if it's,
Just give us a
I
second.
don't
so
remember
can
if it's
get-
just in the works, but I do know that they said, they named the company. Now, what I don't know is if it's only like in outbreak areas. et cetera.
But there was a contract that they
There
physically
is a
signed?
contract, and I know one of the things I read was the state just did this. So Governor Wolf, or the health, the health department had.
Part of health, and it's a requirement, I just, because usually we get all these updates from.
I don't know, it's just something I thought you should be aware of that could be coming down the pipe that may have to have a decision made on it. And
No, that's not how.
I've heard different opinions.
I don't know how this, here's the, I would have difficulty of the state telling me what my child has to be tested for.
Oh, exactly, I got you there.
That's why I'm a little.
Or what they have to be, I mean, certainly, there's certain vaccinations that we all do.
But it comes back to,
It's only a suggestion of the vaccine anyway.
Right.
Lots of things that
They're trying to make-
We are, of course. I will get you the information
Yeah,
that I have.
because I mean, we get updates for anything and everything from whether it be PASA or PSBA or anyone, I have not come across.
This is only, very recent.
The contract was released, the way they're getting around that, Mr. Cleaver, so you don't have to get the opportunity to have approval, is they're gonna try to test the entire class without being individually tested by having a group test. A group
Is
test.
it the sniff test?
Yeah, so they're gonna have a group test, that
They
the
put
entire class.
everything into one
Right,
bucket.
it all goes into one vial, and then they test that vial, and then that's the way they check it, the same
But
way.
if one kid in the
Vial is
classroom
done.
is positive,
Yeah, they're all
all
done,
get part.
and they're all party. So now,
How
hold on.
does that follow? That's really, I don't know, I'm gonna have to look.
The rest of the information is also.
Barb, is there anything else?
No, that's it. I just wanted to bring that up and say, this could be coming down the pipe and you may need to make a decision.
Rather challenging. Autumn?
So Mr. Cleaver, you have a problem with them mandating a test for your student but not requiring a mask on public transportation? Isn't it kind of the same from the government, the same kind of mandates as all, as parents?
The mask isn't putting a cotton Q-tip up to the brain. I've seen it.
That's not how it works.
I'm just saying the ones that might see before they got surgery, that's what they were doing to them. I wasn't for surgery. But yeah, I just know my son when he got tested, felt like he said it was in his brain.
But they stop that now.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
When you originally started doing it, you had to, it was a day, you had to shove it all the way down until you hit the back of the wall. Now they just do the nostril or the throat. Trust me, I had.
If you can take your notes, you can do the test, right? That's what they said, that's what the company said.
They do
That's their
that.
advice. And the fact that we care about your child, Mr. Cleaver, is great. We should all care about the 2,000 students who are in there.
Autumn, please.
I need to go up there, can I
No,
say?
you can stand.
All right.
As long as you can speak loudly.
We all know I can talk loud. All right, so I just came from Borough Council, so this is a message from the council. And I apologize if I sound like a broken record, but this is an issue that has been ongoing for 3 years now. So the closeout of the elementary center building project is still not complete. There's been no certificate of occupancy since the original 90-day temporary one expired in December of 2018.
Oh,
We have been accommodating thus far, but ultimately this becomes a liability for our code officer, the school district, and you as the school board. Council discussed the standstill and is now not comfortable with having children in the building come December 2021 without the certificate of occupancy. This will be followed up with a formal letter from our borough manager. The outstanding issues are land development, the fire lane, and parking. I want it to be known to the public that none of the issues are inside the building. Students are not in any danger. However, it is a liability, and therefore we need it closed out before we can allow it to continue.
The building and this complete specifications are done to the plan approval, correct? The parking and the fire came after the fact of approval of everything.
I thought it was that.
Yes.
But the land, not the land.
No, land development, no, that, Yeah, we've applied and that information is there, everything has been documented, set up
So I
there.
believe what had happened was the parking coincided with what was submitted, however, it overlapped the fire lane and it became an issue for the fire department.
That was after the approval of plans and everything, and that's where the issue came
Yeah.
in. This past month, June, I do know Mr. Ritisms, I believe.
The fire chief,
They
yes.
brought stuff out there to look at adjusting the fire lanes, but they were doing things with ladders to make sure that their ladders fit and everything.
And I believe he submitted everything to,
The
EI.
architects have it, yep, so they're reviewing it now, but the issue comes in then too, of now, to do that, we would have to eliminate some parking, which is part of the approved plans, which was approved by everyone. So it was, that's the important piece I want people to understand. A lot of this stuff came after the fact of approval of the plans. So the way that building is right now is exactly the way plans are approved. After they were approved, the request came from I believe it was the fire themselves, I believe.
right, so.
They were concerned
so
with the event parking.
The event parking, which when you go into the elementary center, that first lane, if you look, there was green, I think green lines.
Right, yeah, they're green
to
lines,
designate the event parking.
Yeah.
However, if there were people parked along the building, those green lines would end up being the fire lane that the fire department would use. So if they're used for event parking, there is no way for the fire department to access it.
The easiest fix is to just make it a fire lane and remove the event parking, which is only a number of spots.
But then you don't
But
have
then
enough
that
event parking.
It doesn't go against the plan that is approved, so we're in the
It's a
process.
catch-22,
Yes,
which we
we're in
need
the
to
process
figure out.
of- But I do know, well, number one, I think the thing is if the borough's okay with approving as with the minus the couple of event parking, which is minimal, that fixes the whole thing, and I do know, I'd have to go back and look, but I do know June, Mr. Maris, I think I'm saying his name correctly, was working with the architect, because they actually brought ladders and stuff to make sure that.
Yeah, we just haven't heard anything since,
Yeah.
so that's
I
why
have to follow up on
I
that,
was
but
asked
thank
to
you.
bring it up tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will also check with the Carbon, because the Carbon County has, that land development has been, as far as I know, that everything has been completed. We're just waiting for them to come and do a visual, but I'll check on that too.
It's on them.
But that's the county, that's not us or the borough.
Okay, thank you all.
All right, can I just ask a question to Mr. Fryler, I'm sorry, before the meeting closes? Just what happens now with that position? That the board voted to hire somebody who does not meet the minimum qualifications of the job description? Does that position remain?
We're still able to hire.
You don't meet the minimum qualifications of the job description.
No legal requirement though, so if the board wanted to hire, the board can hire.
Okay.
The board can hire Larry's cousin.
Well, now, I will say, when it comes to certifications, like, I can't hire someone that does, to be a principal without a principal certification.
Correct.
Because there are supervisory roles with that. So they would actually be supervising somebody.
Because imagine if you'd have a board, a government board, that didn't have at least those controls over themselves, what would take place within our schools?
Someone change the job description? I mean, they're hired, there's no requirement, like I said, there's no supervision that she's gonna be signing documents that require them to have that. When a principal evaluates a teacher, they have to have a principal certification.
It's like the $6 million stadium that's off budget, it's already underneath. I mean, what are you gonna do about it now?
How do you do a yearly eval? When you do an eval, you have to, did they
Perform the
meet
tasks,
the requirements of their job description? Automatically, that's a no.
it's task related, it would be
So
task.
I make a motion that this board, wait a second, I make a motion that this board authorizes time out of her schedule so that she can get the proper training to get at least the minimum requirements for this position that she was just hired to. Can I get a second on that motion, please? Nobody's gonna help us make sure, not really. Rita, not even you?
I do
Jeez.
think she should get the
I
requirements.
think she should, yeah, I think she should. Give her the time to be able to do it. Oh, do it on her own time. So you're gonna make a okay, so then you're gonna make a motion that you require that she has it by the end of the year. That she has it by the end of the year.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
How about you make a motion she has it by the end of the year?
I'll second. You should have some associates who takes her at least 4 years to get that degree qualified.
How about we make a motion that we follow our own rules? Steve, I asked if you're ever going to apologize for what you did in the 5 years that was reviewed by the Auditor General. Steve? Steve Holland. Steve, can you hear me, Steve? Steve, are you ever going to apologize for moving that money from the teachers' pension funds, post-employee benefits, to build a stadium? Steve, are you? Can you hear me, Steve?
Have a nice night.
Steve, are you going to apologize?
Yeah, thank you.
Are you going to apologize, Steve? No? You don't want to do it?
I was having audio issues, so I stopped. I don't know if the case was.
Steve, are you going to apologize for what you did? Steve?
Because you're going to hear,
Come on, Steve, what do you think? Should you apologize for what you did?